my guests in the studio, Professor Jibril Ibrahim and Dr. Chris Akomas, will soon be taking their leave. We really appreciate their time and perspective so far on the program. But before we release them to go, Professor Ibrahim, you may want to give your final words to the people, particularly the electorate and other stakeholders in this election.
My final word would be to say there was some apprehension before the elections that there may be significant level of violence. I'm very glad that that apprehension was unfounded, and that globally the elections were conducted peacefully according to the rules, and all the stakeholders played their roles correctly. So I think we commend all the stakeholders, INEC, the security agencies, and above all, the number one stakeholder, who are the voters, for producing an electoral process that's done in accordance with the rules.
Thank you very much, Prof. Now, Dr. Akobas, how do you expect this election to end?
I expect this election to end peacefully, and for us to have another reference, good reference, on the improvements so far brought to bear on our electoral process by INEC and all the stakeholders. I expect at the end of the day that the good people of Ondo State, the contestants, and indeed Nigerians would be happy to say that the electoral process is evolving and have evolved in such a way and manner that the elections in Ondo have taught us some good aspects and systems to improve and continue to improve on our system, build upon it and grow. I expect that at the end of the day, the maturity that have pervaded the campaigns and processes to this point will prevail, where the people, both the contestants, the supporters and all that, will happily accept the outcome of this, of the result of the elections, and work together towards better Ondo State. So, for me, I expect that at the end of the day, that brotherly love will continue, and for everybody to know that whether it's party A, B, or C that won at the end of the day, that is still Ondo State, Ondo citizen, Ondo son, Ondo people that are involved, and Nigerians as we monitor, look at it and support from here. And I expect that INEC going forward will have some good experiences again to build upon from this election. So we thank God.
Good experiences to build upon for INEC and for the people of Ondo State to continue to guide the process to the end and ensure that end will justify the means. Dr. Chris Akomas, former Deputy Governor, Abia State, we really appreciate your time on this program.
Thank you very much.
And Professor Jibril Ibrahim, Senior Fellow at Center for Democracy and Development. You have been so patient with us today. Thank you so much, always.
It's a pleasure.
All right. It's been so fantastic having these knowledgeable people in the studio. And this program will continue with various reports as we give you account of this process from the Sunshine State, Ondo State, Southwest Nigeria. It's been good to be here with you. My name is Musbat and Wahab. By the time we return from this break, my colleague, veteran Cyrus Toba, will be back on this seat. And now, let's give you a report on past governors and some statistics guiding voters in Ondo State.
State was carved out of the then Western State on the 17th of February 1976. Starting from an Air Force officer, Ita David Ikpeme, who became a military administrator for Ondo State after the state was created by the then former military head of state, late General Muritala Muhammad. Other 7 military administrators, who included Sunday Twoyo, Michael Bamidele Otiko, Michael Ohai Aigbe, Ekundayo Opalaye, Raji Alagbe Rasaki, Chief Olabode George, Sunday Abiodun Olukoya, Mike Tori, Ahmed Usman, Anthony Oyarubulem, and Moses Fasonya administered the affairs of the state. The military interregnum was temporarily suspended in 1979 when late Michael Adekunle Ajashin of the then opposition Unity Party of Nigeria was democratically elected as governor. Another set of military administrations were put in charge of the state from January 1984 to January 1992 when late Bamidele Olumilua of the then Social Democratic Party SDP was elected as the second democratically elected governor of the state. However, his tenure was short-lived by another military interregnum from 1993 to 1999 when late Chief Adebayo Adefarati was elected as the third civilian governor of the state under the platform of the Alliance for Democracy AD. From record, the late former Governor Olusegun Agagu of the then PDP contested for the governorship seat and defeated the incumbent Governor Adebayo Adefarati of the then AD in 2003 and became the 4th governor of the state. The second term in office of the late Governor Agagu was terminated by the appeal court sitting in Benin City, Edo State, as the appellate court affirmed the verdict of the Election Petition Tribunal, which had earlier declared Dr. Olusegun Mimiko of the Labour Party winner of the April 2007 governorship election in Ondo State and subsequently brought Ondo State to an off-season governorship election timetable. Dr. Olusegun Mimiko's 8 years in office as the 5th governor of Ondo State was ended in 2016 when the incumbent governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu of the ruling All Progressives Congress (APC) defeated other contestants who included the PDP candidate Eyitayo Jegede at the 2016 governorship election and became the 6th governor of Ondo State till date. In Akure, Doris Olumoko, NTA News.
According to 2006 census in Nigeria, Ondo State has a population of 3,441,024, comprises 1,761,263 males and 1,679,761 females. 1,646,666 registered voters participated in the October 2016 governorship election in the state. There was, however, an improvement in the number of eligible voters in the 2019 general elections, where the state had 1,822,346 registered voters. Sadly, the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic restricted INEC from registering new eligible voters, and that informed the decision to rely on the registered of voters for 2019 for the October 10 governorship election. From the 1,822,346 registered voters, 925,892 are males, representing 50.81%, and 896,454 females, or 49.19%. According to INEC, there are 203 electoral wards with 3,009 polling units in Ondo State. From INEC data, Akure South local government area has the highest number of registered voters of 290,267, followed by Ondo West with 172,815 registered voters, and Odigbo local government area with 136,146 registered voters, while Akoko South East has the lowest registered voters of 35,747. Ilaje and Ondo local government areas are the two riverine areas in the state. According to INEC, 17 political parties are participating in the election with 1 female candidate and 3 female running mates. In Akure, Oluwakemi Ademola, NTA News.
Right. Thanks for still staying with us. I'm Cyril Stober, and as you well know, Femi Okewu and Musba Anwahab have been holding fort since the Ondo Decide Studios opened this morning. They're standing down now to take a breather, and so we'll continue with what we've been doing all along with elections. Now, 1.4 million registered voters in Ondo, the Sunshine State. It's expected that all of them, well, we all know that it wouldn't happen that way. Not all those who are registered and not all those who collected their voters' cards would, of course, turn up. It's a reality, and we will have the INEC representative to tell us about that as we go on. But they all filed out on this special day, the 10th day of the 10th month of the year, to make an important decision on who will pilot the affairs of the state in the next 4 years. Now, despite heavy rains and the storm that almost enveloped the sunshine from the Sunshine State, the politically sensitized electorate were undeterred in exercising their franchise. Now, from reports, I'm sure you've had those reports yourself, 18 local government areas of the state indicate that the electorate trooped out to cast their ballot, with observers rating the process as peaceful. Now, there were, of course, unfortunately, reports of pockets of violence here and there, with snatching of ballot boxes. We've been told that this won't even affect anything, as well as the card readers being slow in some local government areas. But in all of this, the process and the turnout was adjudged by many as impressive. Now, some visually impaired young men commended the electoral umpire for providing an enabling environment for them to vote. The collation process is on, and we'll continue our discussions and analyses on the Ondo governorship election. And this time around, I have with me in the studio Nick Dazang, who is Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Nick, good to have you again.
Thank you for having me, Cyril.
Right. We're also joined by Peter Uyine, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations and the CEO, Advanced Management Academy, Abuja. Peter, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Right, we've been seeing all that has been going on in Ondo since the polls opened this morning. So, Nick, tell us your feelings.
Well, thank you, Cyril, but permit me to make certain prefatory remarks, which is that yesterday evening, a boat carrying some of our staff to conduct the election in Ilaje capsized. But fortunately for us, the Navy immediately salvaged the staff and the materials for the conduct of the election, and they reached their destination safely. Also this morning, around 8:30, the election was disrupted at Ijemu in Akure South. The police commissioner in charge of this area immediately intervened and voting commenced. Also in Okitipupa, there was an effort to snatch ballot papers, and also the police intervened and the election, continued here. Also at Okejebu in Akure North, there were gunshots, but that did not deter the conduct of the election. Having said that, It's correct. You noted correctly that yes, there were heavy rains across Ondo State, but in spite of the rain, come the rain, come the sunshine, the elections took place, and I'm delighted to report that at 10 a.m. this morning, we had the polling units open to the tune of 99.7%. In fact, except in Akure North and Esedo, where we scored 95% and 98% of opening of the polling units respectively, we scored 100% opening and commencing of the polls at all the 3,009 polling units as at 10 o'clock this morning. So I can say that we started on an impressive note, and if we continue on that note, we are likely to see an election that surpasses what took place in Ondo State. As we speak now, elections in most of the polling units should be over, and the votes the votes will now be sorted out and counted, and then the outcome released at the polling units, at the 3,009 polling units. I will advise that voters wait patiently at this, that is voters who are interested, wait patiently at these polling units and await, the pasting of the result of the conduct of the election in each of the polling units, which will be pasted on the wall of that polling unit so that they can view the outcome. Also, I would like to invite all citizens of Nigeria who have the time to log into our portal using www.anec-electionsresults.com to view the outcome of the conduct of this election at the polling unit level from 4:30 to until the returns are made by the returning officer. Also, permit me, Cyril, to address the allegation that the returning officer, first of all, is from Ondo State and has some relationship with one of the candidates. Let me use this opportunity to disabuse the minds of Nigerians. ANEC cherishes its core values, and one of the core values it holds there is that of impartiality and neutrality. And therefore, there is no way that ANEC will appoint a returning officer from Ondo State, knowing that such a person is likely to come under undue pressure and also can be influenced. So what ANEC does is that we don't allow our staff to conduct elections in states where they hail from. I cannot, for example, conduct elections in Plateau State. I have to recuse myself. And the idea is to make the process as transparent and as impartial as possible. And at the end of the day, then the stakeholders can accept the conduct as credible.
Where do you think this is coming from? Because you're saying now that the returning officer is not what they say he is. Where do you think such an allegation is coming from? And
well, I cannot say, I cannot speak the mind of those who are making the allegations, but it is our responsibility as an election management body to put the facts right and to disabuse the minds of particularly the citizens of Ondo State, so that they don't imagine or even speculate that there's a hanky-panky. There's no hanky-panky. So, all the things we do in the commission are in the open. We've always said it, that the only thing we do on concerning elections that are in secret is when the voter himself enters that cubicle on election day and casts his vote. So that is that. All the things we do are in the open. By the time we take the sensitive materials to the CBN, we invite stakeholders to even inspect the process of sorting them out, cutting them to the local governments, registration areas, to the polling units, and so on. So nothing is done secretly.
All right. Okay, we'll return to you, but let's come to Peter and get his comments on what's been happening so far. From the piece of information we got last night, the boat that capsized, which led to all kinds of speculations. And, thankfully, all that has been laid to rest. We all rescued, the materials were intact. and to the fact that Nick has just told us now that but for one or two other places, they could say that there was more than 99% success in the opening of polls.
Yeah, thank you, Cyril. Now, let me start by congratulating INEC for what it has done so far in this election based on what we have been monitoring and what we've been seeing and what people have been talking about. And even in places where we have had issue with maybe gunshot and the rest of them, when you put all of this together, just about 4 places, maybe one issue or the other one, and we're talking of over 3,000 polling units. Over 3,000 polling units, and we have challenges in about 3 or 4. I think it's a wonderful result. And it must also have, we can also link it to the public education, public enlightenment that has gone ahead before this time, trying to encourage the people, advising them on what to do and what they should not do. We must also appreciate the people who rose to salvage the boat that capsized, okay, ensuring that no life was lost. Materials were also rescued, and that accounted for all of this. We are seeing now that we can say almost 99% starting. It's a good one.
Okay, so that's the build-up to the polls, and voting is on and concluded, and the process now in most of those areas would be putting together the results. So you want to be optimistic that just as the build-up to the voting process was adjudged successful, that the results would bear, the true reflection of what's gone on so far.
Yeah, largely the result will reflect what actually happened. Because now, unlike before, where some people have to transport the thing, and between where they're taking it to where they are taking it from to where they are taking it to, some things may happen. But now at the pool, people know the result. At their unit, they are counting, people are recording, people are calling, and the rest of them. So I don't think we should entertain any fear. Okay.
All right. Well, Nick, yes, some people still have to try to snatch ballot boxes. And it's been said that if you do that in this day and age, it's futile. That it's unlike the past where you could snatch the ballot box and hope that the entire results would be affected. That's not going to happen this time around. So why do people still try?
Well, habits die hard, but we will keep trying to educate Nigerians that it's needless, it's ludicrous for you to go and snatch something that has no value to you. It does not add value to you, and it does not detract from what INEC is going to do. And we've said the process is so transparent that a candidate who has agents at the polling unit, at the registration area center, at the local government, and at the state local government can get copies of the results. He can put them together, and at the end of the day, add up and see what he has scored. And if there are discrepancies, he can go to court. But we have also added this viewing portal as additional transparency measure, so that people can view it, not just the candidates who can nominate polling agents, but all citizens of Nigeria. And in the instance of this portal, we have made it such that 2 million people at least can view the results at the same time without it serving any glitches or clogging. So, people gave all sorts of testimonies right from the Nasarawa State House of Assembly election that we conducted 2 months ago, and the Edo governorship election that we conducted 2 weeks ago, and certainly they will give the same testimony at the end of the conduct of this election. In fact, as at yesterday, not less than 90,000 Nigerians registered in order to view the results of the election that is yet even to be conducted, which is a sign that Nigerians are enthusiastic about the conduct of this election, and that, anytime you do something that is salutary, Nigerians appreciate it.
Sure.
And the way to go forward, and this is a consensus forged by all stakeholders, not just INEC, all the stakeholders involved in the process, that look, we have raised the bar in the conduct of elections, we cannot allow it to get lowered by whatever failing by any of the stakeholders. So we have overarchingly tried to improve, and all the stakeholders too have put in man hours, resources, and so on. You could imagine we were in Ondo, and the ANEC chairman addressed a meeting of the Council of Obas where all of them were congregated and sought their robust support for the process. In addition, throughout the meetings we had, the stakeholder forum or fora that we had, the chairman of the Council of Obas was in attendance. And when our meetings was climaxed by the signing of the peace accords, he insisted on talking to the citizens of his state. And other eminent persons, such as the Sultan, Cardinal Onoyokan, left wherever they were. They went down to Akure and talked to the citizens of Ondo State and solicited their robust support of the process and pleaded with them to comport themselves peacefully. So you can see people are taking even personal risks, you know, spending their time, spending their resources, spending their energies to make sure that we have elections that are free, fair, and credible. And this is because elections, just like other endeavors of life, you know, help in projecting and burnishing our image. I thank God there's a PR pundit here. And a country gets well respected if it conducts good elections.
Sure.
If your football team plays well, the country gets more respected. If the people in academia excel, the country is respected. If NTA excels and you know, claims its place as the non-peril in Africa, it is also celebrated. So these are values we can bring to the table. And at the end of the day, you know, playing our parts, the country's image is improved and Nigerians are respected wherever they go, and they carry themselves with that requisite confidence that each citizen needs to carry himself with.
You know, I was going to say to you to reassure us that the portal is up and running, but from latest reports we're getting in here, it would seem that about 109 results from you know,
have been uploaded
have been uploaded so far. So we can say that going by that, the portal is up and running,
yes,
and people are interested, they're watching it. Now, talking about the interest of people in these elections, let's go back to Ondo State where it's happening. And from reports that have been received all along, that lots of people who were outside the state but who were registered voters in there, but who they traveled for one reason or the other, decided to come back and be part of the process. And so people are saying, well, the electorate in Ondo State, there's a display of, you know, political awareness. Let's talk about that, Peter.
Yeah, talking about the high turnout of people, okay, I think it's also because they have confidence in the umpire. Now, if I know that this election, I will just go there, queue in the sun, I'll be beaten by the rain, and at the end of the day, my vote will not count. I don't need to come back from Lagos to Akure or to wherever in Ondo State to vote. I will stay where I went to. But now because they now believe that, oh, because of what happened in Edo, oh, it means the same thing will be replicated in Ondo. People came back. People came out from their houses. There was a time when people would sit there. Say, let them go now. If you want to go, you can go. We are not going anywhere. Because we know that even if we vote, our vote will not count. But now, people came back from wherever they were, okay? And now we also have people, a lot of people who left their houses and they went out there to queue because they knew their vote will count. Secondly, let me relate it to the image thing. You know, the most important thing we should do about election is that when it's time to vote, come out and vote. Because after the vote, after results have been released, okay, you cannot undo that result. When you did not vote, they say, hey, why did this man win? Why is it that woman did not win? Who asks you, did you vote? So I'm very happy that the Ondo people are very enlightened politically, and they have brought it out practically to do their own part. They have done their part. ANEC is doing his part, And like my colleague said, it means it will affect the reputation of the country. So these are values that we should project, that we should promote. Because now, if your country does something good and you travel, you can introduce yourself, you will be happy to say, oh, I'm from so place. But now, if we are conducting an election and there is fire everywhere and what have you, okay, people will be afraid of you wherever you go outside the country, that you are a troublemaker. So I think we should spend more time, spend more money and all other resources to ensure that all our elections are free and fair. And the fact that we have done this one well, it means that the next one, more people will come out, because it means people are beginning to show their confidence in our electoral process.
All right. And as INEC continues to fine-tune its processes, a key aspect of this has to do with the politicians themselves. Now, we've seen a high sense of awareness amongst the electorate. What about the politicians? Now, this is the crux of the matter, because so many Nigerians still say there's a long way to go to, change attitudes of people who call themselves politicians, to change attitudes. And that's one of the most difficult things to do, attitudinal change.
I think I must thank you for raising this issue. INEC's remit is to organize, conduct elections, promote knowledge of sound democratic processes, etc., etc. But unfortunately, except perhaps INEC and a few other stakeholders, the political parties and the candidates hardly educate the voters. In fact, in the past 4 elections, general elections that I've witnessed in INEC, only 1 or 2 candidates took time to educate the voter about how to vote. So the whole essence of voter education is left to INEC, to NOAA, and a few of the development partners and civil society organizations. And INEC, since 2004, has consciously tried to reform itself and its processes. We started with the optical mark recognition forms. You will recall when we were writing WAEC in those days, there were these forms for objective.
Yeah.
We started improving our processes, introducing technology, using the optical mark OMR forms. And then we escalated from Gubadia's period, when we introduced these OMR forms, to electronic voter registration, where we use direct data capture machines using laptops and accessories during Iwu's time, which were also further escalated by Professor Jega, and we deployed them for the conduct of the 2011 general elections. And since then, and in addition, we also deployed the smart card reader and the permanent voter card in 2015. You can see a conscious effort to deepen technology in INEC, to improve its processes, to put in place transparency measures. We have not seen similar remarkable efforts on the part of the political parties, even though they are the preeminent stakeholders in this process, and they are the direct beneficiaries of this process. When elections are conducted, it is the political parties and the candidates that contest the elections. They win elections, they occupy offices, they enjoy the appurtenances and the offerings of these offices. And yet we do not see any commensurate effort by the political parties to reform themselves, to drive the process using ideology or high-minded ideas. We do not see that. And there is a limit to which INEC can go, because like I said, our remit is to organize, conduct elections, promote knowledge of sound democratic processes, conduct referendums, and so on. But the task of also holding the political parties to account is that of the media, is that of civil society. And I keep challenging the media, I keep challenging the civil society that in the same fashion that you held us to account In the same fashion that you made us to reform, in the same fashion that you made us to improve our processes, use your genius, use your talent, use your own. One of the roles of the media is to hold government accountable to the people. And civil societies, right from time immemorial, are also supposed to play similar roles. But we have not seen such, concentration or attention in terms of calling the political parties to order. And this is the time for us to do that.
Yes, Peter.
Okay, can I add to this? Right. Now, INEC is, for us, for every one of us, laymen, okay? We just say, INEC, it's about election. Just do it. But now, my colleague from INEC is now trying to educate us better. That we in the media, professional bodies, civil society, even political parties, they have a responsibility to also assist to educate the people. Great. And I'm going to prefer, maybe suggest one of the things that we can do is a public relations strategy. Now, INEC can do this. Towards the election, okay, maybe like 6 months to a particular election, or 4 months or 3 months to an election, let's call a meeting of these stakeholders. Professional bodies, civil societies, political parties, student union government, market women association, and all, even religious bodies. Okay, let's call a meeting and give them a template of the way they can assist in educating their people.
Since you suggest this, let me just ask this and say,
okay. Sorry, what happens to
before
because you see, you are preaching to the converted. You are. It's like taking a sermon to the Pentecostals, okay. Right? Because we had instituted statutory meetings with key stakeholders, particularly the political parties, the media, and civil society, and these statutory meetings hold on a quarterly basis. And when issues arise, we summon meetings, beyond these quarterly meetings. That's number one. Number two, each time we issue the timetable and conduct of an election, either gubernatorial or presidential, from the moment that timetable is issued, which captures 14 major activities commencing from the issuance of the notice for the conduct of that election to the conduct of that election, it takes 6 months. And this notice is served to all these stakeholders. And anytime we visit any change to our regulations and rules, we carry on board all these stakeholders.
Sir, but what I'm saying is this. Now, we want them to assist us to educate and enlighten.
Yes, we do that, and the idea is so that they can take
at this point, Peter, let me introduce another angle to this, and I'd just like to find out your honest opinion. Beyond what we hear and the activities, the build-up to elections, and the taking of office of winners in elections, how much of political party activity do you hear once this is over?
Thank you very much. Actually, immediately after an election, everybody goes to sleep.
Right.
And it's not too good.
So
and probably even this kind of staggered election where, because although I know normally not that we planned it, but because of one thing or the other, or maybe because of a court that nullified one result, brought in somebody, that's why we now have some off-season election. And I think it's good for us because we can have enough manpower, to manage whatever, manage security, manage the election proper, and also raise our consciousness. Not that election that we do once in 4 years, but now you can see that almost every year now there will be an election. But I don't know whether that affects your resources.
No, well, let me say that in a way, the way the elections are staggered is a blessing in disguise, in the sense that it keeps us on our toes. It makes us to really do voter education on a continuous basis, taking into consideration the 3 electoral cycles: pre-election, the election, and post-election. And it also helps us to do test pilots, to do trial runs of some of the innovations that we introduce. Because normally you don't use a big or major election to try an innovation.
Yeah.
You use a small election and then you test run that particular innovation, and then if it is at the verge of failing, you can now manage it. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
2 months ago, when we conducted the Nasarawa State House of Assembly election, we deployed the Z-Pad, which we are now using to upload the Form EC8A at the level of the polling unit, which you can now view on this portal.
Okay.
What we also wanted to do was, we considered the fact that the smart card reader's shelf life was ending, and it had begun to show some weaknesses by malfunctioning. And that we could use this Z-Pad to further reinforce the smart card readers. But when we tried it in Nasarawa State, we noticed that we still needed to perfect it. And therefore, we said, since we had critical elections to hold immediately after, we will not deploy it for that reason. Instead, we'll deploy it, for the INEC results portal. Okay. So it also helps. So that you don't wait until when there is a general election before you begin to do voter education. But we have also realized that voter education is something that has to be continuous.
Yes.
It cannot be restricted to the conduct of elections, but you can intensify the voter education as the elections approach, because voter education is very expensive.
Okay. Now, speaking of education, voter education, both on the side of the political parties themselves, who are the contestants, and the election management organ, it's a phenomenon, and we're going to await the official release of the results from Ondo, but we'll also see it happen, because it does happen, and that's the question of voided votes.
Yes.
And we keep asking, is this a lack of enlightenment? What leads to the issue of voided votes? And we've seen this in huge numbers.
Yes.
Perhaps as we go on with this discussion, they could afford us the knowledge of whether it's on the decline or not much difference has been made to the question of voided votes.
I think it's concerning, because in the Ondo governorship election, we had a substantial number of votes that were voided because people could not cast their votes properly. And it's a matter of concern for us, and we need also to beam our searchlight on it going forward, and to see how we can work. I've had the experience of 1 or 2 particular civil society organizations that concentrated their attention on that. But they did it not on the long haul, and it was not nationwide.
Okay.
It was restricted to 1 or 2 states, because I recall that there was a civil society organization in Kogi State which set out to educate voters about how to vote, and it impacted well in one of these elections we now conducted there subsequently, because I took an interest in what that particular NGO was doing. But we need to do it on a national landscape.
Okay.
It has to be nationwide. And we also need to find recourse to other, channels, not the formal channels now. In time past, we used to do these motorized campaigns where we take, we do dramas, and we take them to the local areas, and they are screened. And people, normally it used to be impactful, yes, at the viewing centers or before the Emir's Palace. And it used to be very impactful. And I think we need to go back. It's expensive, but we can be creative about it. We don't have to buy all those Land Rovers. We can hire trucks. We can hire small vehicles, because I saw what EPI did, particularly in far-flung and difficult terrains. What they did was that they did these films, but then they hired, vehicles, and where they went into the hinterland and were screening this. So you only hire you don't buy the vehicle, so it makes it reasonable. So we need to look at some of these things that we think are anachronistic, but they resonate with our people. And what is important is to have that impact. And also, since a lot of Nigerians now are on the internet, you know, the last time I checked, more than 150 million Nigerians use the internet every day, you know, on a daily basis. So perhaps the way to go is to creatively use that too and see how we can send messages, display them on some of our platforms. This is the correct way to vote. This is the wrong way to vote. So we can start that ahead of the next major election. Perhaps by the time we do that, it will now register in the consciousness of people.
Right, Peter, still on the subject of voided votes and how to bring this down to a minimum.
Just like Nick said, it's about education. And he gave a very important example there about that civil society organization that did it just in 2 states. And he said he showed interest. He monitored and noticed that there was a lower, the figure was lowered in that particular place. So it means if we put in something, we'll get something.
Yes.
If we educate them more, we'll reduce the number of voided votes. Because it's a serious challenge.
Again, it is the political parties who lose out when this happens. So how much interest are they taking in ensuring that, look, when you go out, it's not just about vote for A, vote for B, vote for C, you know, but vote and make sure that you vote properly.
Yeah, and you see, it is key. You see, the thing is that sometimes the political parties too are not guided or informed by their own self-enlightened interests. We run a system or process that is majoritarian, the first past the post system. In this context, for example, apart from the person that will be returned as winner, having scored the largest number of votes, he must also satisfy the condition for spread. He must score at least 25% of the votes in at least 2/3 of the local governments. So if the person who is the front runner has just 1 vote ahead of you and he satisfies this other condition of spread, he wins. So it is not in your interest to have any of your vote voided. So, but they don't seem to understand that. It's part of the effort we try to make them understand. We invite them to our even our discourses at the our institute. We have an institute where we use for training. We train our staff. We train the political parties. They hardly take advantage of these opportunities. And in the long run, it is they that, like I said earlier on, are the direct beneficiaries.
Right. Just to remind you that the first part of what's happening in Ondo State has taken place, and that had to deal with the opening of polls, the casting of ballots, and hopefully that process would, to a large extent, have been concluded, and the next stage would be to put this together and begin to come out. And the last time we checked, we knew that about 109 results had been uploaded to the portal, and I do expect that even as we speak now, the figure has gone higher than that. And so many people are keeping abreast of what's happening, and it's not just the people of Ondo State. There are so many Nigerians who are interested, and they're using this as a yardstick. Same thing, people were interested in what happened in Edo, now it's Ondo, and more Nigerians are keen into this, to use this and project how future elections in Nigeria would take place. Now, yes, you could say that it's only just one state, and but then it's a pointer, isn't it?
Sure,
let's come to you again. Right.
It is a pointer. Now, one thing is that if we do this well, it will affect the next one. I've not done any serious comparison, but I want to believe that if we sit down and now compare Edo with Ondo, we must see some level of improvement. Okay? And it's good for every one of us, because it means the next election will also get better. And I like what NT is doing, okay, because we may, you know, one thing about public relations, public enlightenment, public education, is that somebody who tells me that he says it every time we talk about training, talk about education. He says that the moment I can bring you into that class to sit down, even if you are playing with your phone, even if you are sleeping, say by the time you leave, you must pick something. So what we're doing is very laudable, because it's going out there. Even now, what we are doing is education. We are educating people, okay, that, oh, why did we have so many voided votes? It's because of some of this. Okay, what can be done so that we don't have it again? This is what you should do. And don't be surprised. We have mentioned the student union, market women, and the rest of them, okay? They may now begin to also show interest, okay, in educating their own members. Let's do it this way. Let's do it that way.
Right. Let's go to another aspect of the political culture. And I always bring this up anytime I have the opportunity. Okay. Ondo, we had 17 people who were contesting. And of the 17, there was one woman. People have spoken out about women taking their rightful place in the scheme of things. Yes, it's a global problem, but we think that more could be done, and it could be better than it is in Nigeria. What are your thoughts on that, and women's participation in the process?
Okay. Number one, I would like a lot of women to come out and contest election and become rulers and leaders. Because I must tell you, over a long period of time, a lot of men have disappointed us. Yes, and we are all aware of this. So it's not only Peter talking about it. Okay, let's try. It's like maybe it's party A, men, we are party A. So this is party B. Let's try these people. But now we must also provide for them a what's it called, level playing ground. You say that, we always say that, then conducive environment. But now when we are talking of buying a form for 10 million naira, okay, 20 million naira and the rest of them, we discourage these women. So INEC, civil societies, professional bodies and the rest of them, we must begin to push women to come out. But we must make sure that they are not going to spend all the money. Number one, let me even say this. It's even wrong when we spend so much on elections, because it means that if we encourage people to spend so much, as they get in, they want to recoup what they have spent. So election is so expensive in our country that you don't even dare it. So there are good people, there are wonderful people, but they can't come out because to even purchase the form, okay, it's like your 20 years salary. You won't do that. So we must educate people, we must encourage people. Let's encourage our women. Let's begin from religious bodies, in schools, in professional bodies and the rest of them. Then if it means for the political parties, reduce what a woman will pay to pick the form, we should do it. If there's any way INEC will also intervene in that, we should also do it. But I also want to encourage the women that, let me tell you something, leadership is not something that is given to people. We must fight for it.
Okay.
We must fight. So women must also come.
Perhaps. I know Nick wants to make a comment, but
yes, because
I should
like
also.
Peter keeps taking the words out of my mouth.
Okay.
He keeps preempting me, and for good.
Right.
You see, we keep paying lip service to this issue of gender. We hardly walk the talk. The Nigerian government has a gender policy, and INEC has a gender policy that draws from that policy and other international instruments.
Okay.
And for the past 10 years, this policy has been driven, you know, from its inchoate and stage to a policy that was, you know, developed, tested, reviewed, and a particular deputy director, you know, has devoted herself to this.
In INEC?
Yes, in INEC.
Okay. So
now, INEC does not walk the talk like other stakeholders. And that is why, back to back, the secretary to the commission of INEC, back to back, that is for 2 consecutive terms have been women.
All right. So
that's number one. Number
okay.
two,
okay.
we have mainstreamed gender in our in our staffing and recruitment. And even if you go and check the ad hoc staff that participated in the Edo governorship election, there was a substantial number of female staff.
Right.
Now,
while
the way to go, is to create an environment for women, to participate robustly.
While that might be
and
so,
the way to go is to borrow from other jurisdictions. What
right.
have others done? They provide affirmative action.
Okay.
They deliberately create rooms for women to be members of the National Assembly. For example, certain seats are allocated to them.
Okay.
And the fact is that there are certain pieces of legislation that cannot be robust or be rounded unless they benefit from the perspectives of women.
Right.
It is so possible.
Dick, something just struck me while you were speaking.
Thirdly, I can go on and
right.
on, but thirdly, just allow me.
Okay. Just before you go to the third one, something struck me as you started talking. You talked about staffing. You talked about even for those ad hoc.
Yes. We consciously make sure that
perhaps many Nigerians would say, okay, since that's the way to go, perhaps they would love to see many more female resident electoral commissioners and many more female returning officers in major elections. How about that?
We have also consciously done that, but the appointment of resident electoral officer commissioners is not that of the commission.
Yes, it doesn't have to be.
Yes, the president appoints them.
Yes,
but we for now we have 3 national commissioners who are women. And I can assure you, the
returning officers in major elections.
Well, we will come to that.
Right.
We will come to that, and by we will also have more of the women as returning officers.
Okay.
But don't also forget that this task comes with certain risks. And that's why I said we will address that by and by.
But everything comes with risks.
Yes, we know. But what we are saying is that as our elections improve,
right,
and as people now appreciate that they don't have to visit violence to the process, then we can bring in more women instead of exposing. Whenever you have violence, the prominent victims are women and children. So there are certain things in which you also need to shield them. But there are certain things for which you must create deliberately an environment for them. For example, we have always told the political parties, you should refrain from holding meetings in the night. Because when you do that, you discourage the women to attend. Because very few men will want to allow their women to attend meetings in the night.
Yes.
So is there something about holding political activities in the middle of the night?
I'm not a politician.
Right, but
I don't know why they like
you build images. For instance, if a party said to you,
normally bad things occur in the night.
Yes.
All right. So if an organ said to you, Peter, as a PR expert, how do we improve our image? How do we go about encouraging more people to believe in the ideals which we preach? It's all encompassing. What would you say to them? Because you wouldn't advise them based on only one section, one gender, would you? Right.
Now, actually, in fact, if you want to have a good image, if you want to be in the good eye of the member of the public, you have to take care of the women. And like we have said, you must provide a conducive environment for them to participate. Like the issue of the night meeting is talking about. I don't know how it started. I don't know what people benefit from it. But the thing, because what you discuss in the night can be discussed in the day. Yes. It's just to do it behind a locked door if you don't want it out. But probably because a lot of people will go to do other things, and later as we relax, then that is when we talk. Maybe. But now consciously, if we really want to bring these women, we have to change meeting time.
All right. Let's go to a step further than that and talk about the electorate. Of course, we're beginning to see more women come out. In the past, fewer women came out. It was either they were restricted by so many social factors. But now we're seeing more women. In fact, it's always said that if women voters stepped out and really stepped out in their numbers, they would change the entire landscape.
Sure.
Let me also say something which you refrain me from saying.
Right.
You see, what is lost on us is that the remarkable improvement or development that China has witnessed is also accountable to its investment in girl-child education.
Right.
There are certain things that are in the provinces only of women. If you give a man 10,000 naira now, and you give a woman 10,000 naira, tomorrow you ask them about the 10,000 naira, it's likely that the woman will invest that 10,000 naira better than the man. I can assure you.
Right.
So that has accounted for their speedy growth. And that is why some of us have been arguing that, look, we need to give room to women. And you see, women also tend to be focused. If you give a woman an assignment, she faces it religiously. They have this missionary tendency that we need, because part of our challenge is that we start well and then we don't finish well. We get distracted. But my study of women has shown, and which I've celebrated somewhere, you know, but I've always said it, that to me, they seem to me to be focused. And we need to take advantage of some of these tendencies, you know, and factor them in our own development.
Right. Peter, more women participating in the voting process.
Yeah. Now, let me also say this. You know, I was talking about the issue of professional bodies, civil society, and the rest of them. Now, what we can do is that let's start from this different case doing its own assignment. Now, let's encourage many more people. In fact, we can even have Women Day, Women in Politics Day, okay, or week. That the whole of that week or the whole of that day, all TV stations, radio stations, programs on social media and the rest of them, everybody focuses on women, okay, how to encourage them to participate in politics. Let's tell them how to go about it, why we need them. We have seen what women have done in a lot of places where they were given assignment, they did it well. When I say you can replicate this, see, we have suffered enough in this country, okay, and I keep saying it. Men have tried, okay? Let the women come and try as well. Men, we have tried, okay? Let's encourage our women to try. And if they don't try, in fact, it doesn't mean that the moment they come, things will change dramatically.
Would you go for legislation?
Yes.
Nick talked about
yes, that can
affirmative
give,
action.
sure.
And say, look,
Sure.
it's a matter of law that XYZ percentage is exclusively
Now, even though we are veering off from the electoral process,
Yes.
but if you also look at the management of the coronavirus pandemic globally, the countries that are led by women were the ones that managed the pandemic best. It's empirical. It's not sentimental. It's not a priori. It's there. So you know, we keep. You can continue, you know, numbering or cataloging, you know, positive attributes. Well, that women.
I guess the election in Ondo State is throwing up so many angles to the electoral process and the entire process, not just in the state, but in the country at large, because after all, it's a reflection. Edo, Ondo certainly would be reflections of what happens on a larger scale in Nigeria, and that is why at this point in time we're going back to the build-up, the casting of ballots, the collation of results, the announcement of results, and what next. Nick has said here that the process INEC has put in place is such that if any contestant is dissatisfied, they can take it further. But again, Nigerians say, when will it be that elections will be decided by votes in Nigeria and not by law courts, as it's happening all the time?
Okay, let me say this. We shouldn't say every time it must be by our votes. If we have not done it right, there is always a way out. The court is not alien, it's not foreign, it's part of us. And what the court will use to take a decision is also materials collected from election, what people witnessed, what people saw, the role people played. These are the things we are bringing to the court. So and that's why the court is there. So the court is not a land, it's not a bad place. So if a proper thing is not done, then we have a place with a recourse. There's a place we can go and say, look at it. Because if we don't have that, then it's not good, it's not fair that you have cheated me and I just have to keep quiet till the next 4 years. No, let me have a place I can go and give them my fat, and they say, bring your own fat as well, and a decision is taken.
But invariably, what's it in our politics?
Yeah.
What is it in our politics
Yeah.
that presupposes that there would always be things that are not done the way they should be done? And what's in it that everyone, almost everyone, well, it's as high as 70% of people who lose elections challenge the results and say they've been unfairly treated.
Okay. Now, I don't have any problem with anybody who says I was cheated, whatever. Because you can say that. And if you take the next step to go to the court will not just say, yes, cancel that result and put it there. No. You must prove to the court, this happened, and this happened. And now, based on the innovations we're having from INEC, we're going to see a reduction in the number of cases, okay, issues going to court. Because if I took part in an election and I noticed that I lost, so why would I want to waste my money?
I think that I want to align myself, first of all, with what she's saying. That if an election appears to reflect the intentment of the voters, and that election is credible in the eyes of all stakeholders, then it makes it unnecessary for people to challenge the outcome. But where they don't, I think the framers of our Constitution deliberately provided for the courts to arbitrate so that people don't find recourse to violence.
Yeah.
And that is why 2 weeks before the conduct of a general election, the president of the appeal court issues directions as to how the tribunals and the courts are going to adjudicate over election cases. Be that as it may, and what's an all, because some of the tribunals also have come under a lot of criticism. But let me say that some of the improvements also you see in what we do in INEC have arisen from some of the observations and some of the judgments made by the courts and the tribunals. When they issue their judgments, we also study these judgments. We look at where we came short, because if the judgment indicts us, it means that we have to also make amends. So there is also the point that the system as it is also helps the process. In other jurisdictions, you don't have this. So I think for us, it's okay. But I think on the whole, what I would like to say is that people should learn to defer to the majesty of the democratic process. People should concede when they lose elections. Like what former President Jonathan Goodluck did. He showed statesmanship by accepting the outcome of an election in which he was losing even before the return was made. And that has been counted for him for statesmanship. It has brought out his standing before others in the international community. And that is the way to go. And let me also tell you that in Ondo, you know, when we conducted the last governorship election in 2016, even though the three formidable candidates in that contest were senior advocates of Nigeria, none of them went to court because they felt that the outcome, the election was free and fair. And we expect that at the end of the day, even when this election is returned and a winner emerges, that people will see the process as a win-win for all of us. You can always go back and contest, you know. And you see, there are also issues you would have brought to the platform through the course of the debates, through the course of the campaigns. And there are issues that the incumbent will not ignore. So
yes.
you would have, brought to the fore issues that will help that state by campaigning, by investing your time and resources in campaigning. These are things we ought to appreciate. Look at what happened when the aspirants on the platform of the Democratic Party were slugging it out with Biden before he emerged as victorious. Everyone was pushing a particular position. But at the end of the day, when Biden emerged as the winner of that contest, their interest was to push their platforms,
yes,
the issues they were raising to him. And he, in order also to benefit from their supporters, he has to elevate those platforms to those of his own.
All right. Well, Peter, you think there's something in many of the politicians that makes them the kinds of skeptics that they are? I mean, even the tribunals and the courts are not spared controversies when it comes to deciding disputes arising from the electoral process. You find two sides. The side that wins hails the judiciary as the last hope of the common man. The side that loses alleges that the judiciary has lost its way, and there would be need to restructure. What's in us?
Okay, number one, I think the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations and other professional bodies who are into educating people, enlightening people, must begin to run programs to discourage politicians and our people from doing this. Because when we disparage ourselves, it affects our international reputation. You understand? Because see, the words are very powerful. The moment you utter it, it goes out to affect the way people see you. So if you are not too sure of something, don't say it. Like we're talking about fake news. Don't just share things anyhow. So if you are not too sure, keep quiet. If the law court has pronounced a judgment, it is like this. Don't come and say, oh, they must have collected whatever. They didn't collect from you, okay? But at the same time, we must also balance it. We must do the right thing. The judges must do the right thing. You understand? Because if we have known that you are always like that, anything goes. The moment you see money, anything goes. People who are like this, even if you have not done it. So it's a kind of something I want to call reorientation program for the entire country. See, we must be careful what we say about our country, what we write about our country, what we post about our country. Because we have no other country. This is our country. What makes up the image of a country or even the image of an individual, it's what people are saying, it's what people are reading, it's what people are saying about that organization or that country or that individual. So we must be careful so that we don't disparage institutions and they become irrelevant.
All right, speaking of fake news, and it would seem that the portal is one step in, addressing the issue of fake news because,
because you now have authentic
lots of people have access to this portal, and Nick, you say about you made sure that at least
it can accommodate 2 million viewers at the same time
without any glitch. Yes. So if you have 1.2 million, for instance, following the results as they are uploaded, and it does mean that those 1.2 million can further spread the word, and that this could to a large extent reduce the incidence of fake news.
Sure. So I think it's a good thing INEC has done, okay? And as we go on, I'm sure that we're going to have more innovation. Because one thing we say in communication is that the moment you leave there was a time a communication expert said, don't allow a communication, a gap. If you allow a gap, people will fill it with lies. So then they were talking about the communication gap. Another professional came and said, no, there can never be a communication gap. Because the moment you leave it, they feel it. You are the person that should release the information. You did not release it. So the person who does not have the power to release will release it. And now people will go with it. People will travel with it. And now they will think is the right thing. So it's a great thing INEC is doing so that we have the information out there. It's not something that, unlike before, when we have to wait till tomorrow, till whatever. So what is happening now?
Till forever.
I know what we say. The people will now say they are they are writing the thing somewhere. That's why they are still. But it's no longer like that. It's a good thing.
But you see also, part of why INEC takes so long before the elections come out is because by law, we must collate these elections manually.
Okay.
At the polling unit level, at the ward level, at the local government level, at the state level, and at the level of the presidential election.
Okay.
That's why each time, for example, an election is going to be returned by the Chief Electoral Commissioner, you see him entering all sorts of, and each person has to bring his result, announce it, then he enters it in the full glare of Nigerians. And it takes so long. But what we are saying is permit us by law to use technology so that we shorten all this. Okay. Because there are ways we can do that, and it will reduce the time and then reduce the suspicion, and then imbue and invest the process with more confidence and remove the trust deficit. You know, because in other jurisdictions that there is trust. I can give you the example of India. All these things we call sensitive, in quotes, they are transported by the post office. The ballot papers, the result sheets, they are transported by the post office.
That would be the day.
If you do that there, they will hijack the NIPOST vehicle on maybe at Nyanya and bomb it. So we need to arrive at that point where these so-called sensitive materials are demystified. And do you know that we put in the same security measures in these sensitive materials as we put in our currency? And that is money. Because all those security features we are putting cost money. The paper, the quality of that paper also is very expensive. In France, they just use A4 paper. And you just write the name of the party and the candidate, and you just slot it into the ballot box.
So all these have done to make our electoral process
more expensive, more complicated. So but I think it is a trust that INEC has to earn.
But
we have to work towards
also thinking that it's also a nation building process.
Yes.
When we talk about France, talk about UK, talk about US, it's been a long time.
Yes.
Right, but when it comes to electoral matters and doing what is right, you're not reinventing the wheel, are you?
No, we are not.
Right. So if we talk about all this, adding to the cost of holding elections, what about the campaigns themselves? I'd like us to look at that. And over time, we saw the build-up, we saw in general elections, in these elections that are off-circle, we've seen Edo, we've seen Ondo. I want to believe that you kept a little bit of watch over what the contestants were doing in the build-up, and how would you rate those activities? Issue-based campaigns?
Okay, I'm going to look at two things. Number one, the cost, then the issues.
Right.
We spend too much money. And I know there was a time we were talking of ceiling, okay? How much would you spend if you are contesting to be a local government chairman, a councillor? How much for a governor, for this and that? I don't know whether we are still looking at that. Because if we don't look at it, we allow people to do whatever. I pray that it won't get to a stage where people will be giving every person on the queue an iPhone, okay, so that he can vote for me. So the cost is too much, and that is what is discouraging some good people who have good ideas to come. They don't have this kind of money, but they have the ideas, they can run this thing, they can do it well. So we must go back to that cost, and we have to bring it down. And even talking about the issue of individual, is that what we call it? When you are not, I'm talking about a candidate that does not belong to any party.
Independent
candidature, okay? We have to push it. If we may try the first time, nobody may win. Let them keep trying. But this one, I have got to belong to a particular party, spend a lot of money, pick a firm that cost me 10 million, 20 million, and the rest of them, see some godfather and what have you. It's seeking, it's not too good. Something must be done to bring down the cost of this material, of election. Now, then let's talk about the issue of the process, the campaign and the rest of them. Oh my God, okay, it's not too good again. You see people calling themselves all manner of names. You see people are ready to fight. Some people even die. I must let them know, anybody who dies, the country will continue. If you die, that is your own. So nobody should die because of any election. Even if it's presidential election, one life like this should not be lost. So we must make this known to our to the citizen, general citizen, then to politicians. Because I must tell you, God will ask you if we have to die because of you. If it was what you said, if it was the way you pumped them, if it was the way you empowered them that made them to go out there to kill somebody, you are going to account for that life.
I think before you just come in, let me just put this. Is it possible, given our situation, is it possible to place a cap on how much the politicians spend? And if it is, I know it's there, but is it really enforceable? And do you have a way of knowing?
Well, INEC has been working very hard on the issue of campaign finance, to the extent that it has had to look for support from development partners to train its staff, on how to track expenses by candidates, political parties, and also to put a cap on how much politicians can spend, and then the duration, from which these things can be tracked, and then, and also to have the accounts of political parties audited on an annual basis and so on. These are measures that INEC has tried to put in place over time. But I think beyond that, we also need to look at our politics. Since 1999, it doesn't seem to me, I stand to be corrected, and that is why I'm very careful to enter this murky area where I don't have a remit, and therefore I might just be ventilating my own opinion, not even INEC's. But I think as a Nigerian, I think I also have the right to do so. Come to think of it, I think that we also have to address the fact that our democracy is not delivering on dividends. We need to consciously work on that. And I have been very hard on the political parties and the politicians, because I feel that you need, in anything you are doing, to have enlightened self-interest. How do I carry myself in such a way that in the long run, people will not dislike me, people will not see me with hatred or with odium? The Nigerian politician is driving himself fast to the verge of that odium, in the sense that people, don't benefit from any dividends they are delivering, and therefore they feel it is better to now collect money up front in lieu of the position that you are going to occupy, which is wrong. And people are desperate because they feel after the election we will not cite this man again. So why don't we get what we can get? We need to address that. We need also to encourage our people to understand that when they do that, they should change themselves. And we need also to be in a position to hold these politicians to account. And there are people who are richer, countries that are richer than us, and the kind of perquisites they enjoy are not, there's a far cry from ours. In Sweden, for example, members of parliament are paid on the basis of, they are paid allowances based on sittings. So if you don't attend parliament, you are not paid. And there is a certain amount, that is paid for that. And the last time I checked, we are not as, in terms of affluence, we are not as affluent as Sweden, for example. So the way to go is also to make our politics unattractive, not a situation where somebody will come to Abuja by night bus, and by the time he's inaugurated, you see him with a convoy of jeeps. I think we need to interrogate that, and we need to, you see, there are things we need. We need a little bit of emotional intelligence.
Placing a cap on the expenditure of political parties and politicians is still work in progress, and not much has been achieved in that direction. And so it would seem that huge amounts of money, huge sums are still being expended to either fund campaigns or fund the whole process from the politician's point of view. And what about the electorate? Now we have agreed that the electorate are beginning to be more aware and politically conscious. But has financial inducement reduced?
Okay. Now let me say this. Taking into consideration the situation of our country, the situation of our people, it will not reduce. Somebody who does not have a work, who cannot pay the school fee of the daughter, who is being threatened by the landlord.
But isn't that why they should use their votes to change the situation?
But they are feeling that what I can see, what I can get now, like Nick said, up front, pay me now. What I can get now. And the man they are talking to, they are not even talking to, is the man who even suggests, say, if you do this, I will do this for you. If you are ready to vote for me. And he's looking at his child. The child cannot go to school. He will collect the thing. He will not want to wait for that one of them. He come in 1 year or in 2 years' time or in 3 years' time. He does not want to wait for that. So what we need is to change the orientation of these people. Although gradually in some part of the country, there is this saying, which I do not actually buy into, okay? They'll say that if they give you money, collect it. It's your money. But go and vote your conscience. See, the book says a man's gift makes a way for him.
So you wouldn't subscribe to
collect it,
but follow your conscience.
It's not easy to follow your conscience. Okay. The moment you collect, see, the gift has power.
Well, is it also easy to reject the gift?
So the orientation is the thing.
Yeah.
Let's change the orientation of our people. Let's change the orientation and say what we want. What we want: a good school. We want a good medical service delivery. We want a wonderful transport system. If I'm going to Lagos, if I don't have the money to fly, okay, I should be able to go in the train, in a tube. I should be in Lagos in a matter of 4 hours. Not that I'm going to Lagos by road. You are spending about 12-13 hours. There's no train that will take you from here to Lagos anyway. Then you want to fly, you are talking of about 30 to even sometimes 40 or 50,000 one way. So what we need is, let's tell our people, don't collect this money. Let them work for us. Let them work for it. May be a difficult thing to do, but gradually, like those of us who sit here, I don't think anybody will come and give me money and say, if you vote for me. Okay, because I know, number one, it is wrong before God. Number two, I'm just changing myself. You will not do anything. You have already paid me. And I do know we can say this thing and gradually people will get there. There was a time National Orientation Agency was very serious about this. I've not seen a lot of their campaign stuff again, okay, about changing the orientation of our people, telling them that, see, don't collect this money. Let these people work for you. Let's make them accountable. They must come back and tell us what they have done.
All right. Well, innovations. The portal is one of them. And Nigerians are looking beyond the present, and they're thinking of, yes, electronic voting in the real sense of it, where you can cast your ballots. In other climes, you have early ballots. People can do that. You can be anywhere you are and still vote. And Nick has spoken of how INEC has worked hard to recommend, this movement as a step forward. What are the challenges that you might see as we think about that? There are some people who would say to you, look, you know something, we have some of the smartest citizens here. And even in those countries that we think are far ahead, it was possible to scare them with, electronics and, the, the whole stuff.
You're right, Cyril. Number one, a lot of Nigerians will not, they don't want, because they will say, how are you sure that it is what we are putting that is coming out there? That is one. But thank God that, see, it is garbage in, garbage out. That can be taken care of. Although it's a challenge, that would they believe it is a challenge. Number two, do we have the infrastructure? Power supply is part of it. Do we have it? It's part of it. Then our level of education. Because now you are going to cut out some people. A large number of people will cut out. Because this thing is not whatever. People must have some level, minimum level of education to know where to touch, what to do, whatever. So we have all of these challenges.
People are using their smartphones.
Yes, they are. They are. So it takes training as well. We have to train them. Okay, when we started with phone, it wasn't like this. A lot of people, some people had it there, some people did not have it. But gradually, so the same thing will happen. But because the election thing is something that everybody anybody who wants to vote must be allowed to, okay? But one thing is that we can train people, okay? Anything that is new, we have its challenges, but gradually we get there. But infrastructure is a challenge.
Well,
yes.
it's good you brought this issue because it coincides with the Commission's effort, to introduce electronic voting into the process now that the law allows us to do so. Okay. In time past, we had always wanted to use electronic voting, but the law did not allow us. Thankfully now, we've been allowed to do that. As far back as 2010, the Commission invited the Chief Electoral Officer of India to come and talk to us about electronic voting. And part of it is because we share certain similarities with India. We are a developing country like India, even though in terms of technology, India is light years ahead of us now. And India has one of the largest populations in Asia, and we have the largest population in Africa. We have similar climates and so on and so forth. So we felt it was propitious to invite him to come and talk to us about it. So that is to show you the extent to which the Commission had been interested in improving or deepening technology in its processes. And I mentioned the OMR forms that we started using in 2004 to the DDC machines, to the registration we did electronically. All these are aspects of the electronic voting machine, actually. Now, whenever we want to introduce technology, the naysayers will always bring this issue of we don't have steady electricity, our people are illiterate. And so, in fact, in 2015, I recall vividly that when we now introduced the smart card reader, the naysayers had a field day trying to say that it was not possible to deploy the smart card reader. But what the Commission did, and which has now become policy, is that we first of all did a trial run in the 6 geopolitical zones, and we chose 12 locations that were rural, were rustic. In fact, even in Lagos, where we did the trial run, we did it in Onibongo, which is an abule. That is village, isn't it?
Yes.
In Yoruba, it means the village of Ikeja. So we chose deliberately a place that was a slump area, populated by the poor. And I can assure you that when we tested the smart card readers in these so-called rural places, the people understood how it worked. They embraced it 100%. So, going by this antecedent, I believe that by the time we deploy the electronic voting machine, it will also enjoy similar acceptance. We are not going for a machine that does not take into account our
peculiarities.
Our peculiarities. The smart card reader was designed by our annex staff. We are very inventive. All these portals, they are created by our annex staff. And when COVID-19 came, the commission challenged them, and that was how we accredited observers that are observing the conduct of this election through these portals. Even the journalists that are covering the conduct of these elections are accredited through these portals electronically. You don't have to come to us. You log into the portal, you supply us with information regarding you and your picture, and we create an identity card for you. And then we take it to Akure or Benin, and then you come and collect your ID card. And what we did is each organization, like NTA for example, appoints a liaison officer who now logs in, supplies us with the information we need, and pronto, these cards are printed for you. Don't have to come in contact with us. So by the same token, we'll take this as a challenge, and we have invited 40 companies to come and display to us, explain to us, and as they are doing that, we are also taking into cognizance our peculiarities and whether these machines will work in this environment. So we are looking at that, and you can, you rest assured that at the end of the day, INEC will do what is in the interest of this country as usual.
Now that you mention COVID-19, I suppose we must look at how it's been. Did this pandemic make the job of INEC that more difficult than we would have envisaged? And at the start of it all, there were people who felt, oh, with this pandemic, we never will be able to run elections or do campaigns. And how tasking was it for INEC to apply itself to conducting elections in a pandemic period such as this?
You see, once this pandemic came, in fact, before it reached here, we started thinking, how were we going to conduct the elections, these off-season elections we are conducting? Recall that we issued the timetable and schedule for the conduct of the Edo and Ondo governorship elections in February 2020. That's 6 months ago. And by then, the pandemic had not reached here, even though it had reached certain jurisdictions globally. And therefore, we now looked at our laws and saw that these elections are end of tenure elections and are governed by such laws as make it impossible for us to move them, because they will create their own constitutional crisis. In fact, they are so immovable that one notable lawyer said they are like Mount Zion. They cannot be moved. So when we recognized that we couldn't move them, we now had to challenge ourselves and say, look, how do we go about it? Even before the presidential task force came out with its guidelines. So we sat down and now articulated a policy. And then as soon as we articulated that policy, we now got the buy-in of stakeholders. We immediately got the buy-in of the political parties. We got the buy-in of the media. We got the buy-in of the security agencies, because these are key. And then as soon as the PTF came on board, of course the National Center for Disease Control had always been there. It came before the PTF. So we now worked and are still working in concert. So we developed that policy and we went to town, explaining it, advertising it, doing jingles, taking it to stakeholders and so on. And then we did a trial run 2 months ago, August 8th, during the conduct of the National State House of Assembly election. And then after we did the trial run, we came back and did a post-mortem. We looked at where we came short and how we could improve. In the Nasarawa State election, even though in our policy we supply infrared thermometers at the collation centers only, the PTF supplied us 1,000 copies of the infrared thermometers, which we now deploy to all the polling units. And in addition to that, it also gave us another set of 3,000 thermometers, infrared thermometers that we deployed in Edo. And we now, after using them in Edo, we now move them to Ondo, you know. So that has strengthened our resolve and emboldened us to say, look, this election is doable and Nigeria can overcome the crisis, you know, that would have followed if there was a lacuna in terms of not having somebody in that office. Because if you look at the implication of what would happen, is we would have had chaos in these states because the tenures of these people would lapse, and there will be nobody holding fort. So that is the import, and therefore, you know, but they say invention, I mean, is the matter of necessity, isn't it? Yeah. So anytime we have a necessity, rather, is the mother of invention. I'm inverting it. So
right, so it was challenging for INEC. Peter, how challenging is it for a voter, electorate? We've never seen anything like this before, and it was no face mask, no voting. Infrared thermometers were deployed to polling centers, and it's easy for a voter to think, well, what if I appear to perform my civic duty and someone takes my temperature and say, look, it's above normal, so I lose my voting rights, and how would that, you know, settle with the voter?
Yeah, actually, we have to thank God that you know, before this election, we have been battling with COVID from March. Okay, so it means we had adjusted to the protocols. Oh, this is what to wear, this is how to walk, this is where to sit, this where this. So it has prepared the people long before the election. The only challenge I saw was during the campaign. Because during the campaign, people threw caution to the winds. Okay? You will see politicians with their people, okay? Some people will wear the face mask, some people will not wear it, and they were doing their thing. But for the election, I don't think there was any, it wasn't that serious, it wasn't any serious challenge. But we have to ensure that in subsequent elections, okay, if COVID is still around, we must insist that rallies and the rest of them, all of those things are done in the proper way.
I'm just curious as a person. I know this is rather hypothetical now, but I'm just wondering, it didn't happen, but I'm just wondering, what if, how many do you have in a polling unit? How many voters are we looking at?
Not less than 500.
Not less than 500. Suppose 500 people turn out to vote, and now I said it's just, you know, and 300 have temperatures hitting the roof, and so what happens?
No,
if I have a contestant, and that is my strong point.
We haven't arrived at that point
right.
where where it has spiked.
Yeah, well, I just thought about that, and I said, well, mercifully we didn't arrive at that. But if it happened, if it so happened, what would you do?
I think the protocol, just observe the protocol. Instead of you to infect other people, please, just understand with us. Okay, just understand with us.
But that's for those who go out. What of those who say, look, I can't take the risk and go out there and perform this and stay back?
God has seen ahead of this. That's why He didn't allow us to get to that level.
Did INEC envisage slow voter turnout because of the pandemic, even though you put in certain measures?
Yes, we did. And if you look at the Edo governorship election, in spite of everything, I think it was impressive, but there was a 5% drop, in the voter turnout compared with the voter turnout in, I think 3%, from 28% to 25%, so 3% drop. In spite of the kind of saturated voter education we did, But I think it paid off well in the sense that we were not even imagining that we would have that kind of impressive voter turnout. Maybe I will also look at what by tomorrow when the results are returned.
Right, we might be able to see
an idea of the performance and the turnout of the voters in the conduct of today's election. But I think so far so good, because in spite of the rains and it was almost across the 3 senatorial districts, people stayed put and still voted. So I think it will also be, the turnout will not be too bad in my view, and we keep working. And I think, like we observed much earlier, there is a relationship, there's a correlation between delivering dividends of democracy and also voter turnout.
Yes.
And now also that the votes are counting, it's also another incentive for people to come out. You know, the more people believe that their votes are counted and they count and they will be counted, you know, the more confident they are, and they can take their time to come out and exercise their franchise. But we need to work. The commission itself, the stakeholders, particularly the political parties and the politicians. We need to look into this in the interest of the country and address some of our failings, because if we don't address them, we shouldn't give the citizens any pleasure of contemplating alternatives to this process. And the way to do it is to make sure that there is some benefit in terms of social amenities, in terms of improving their well-being, in terms of seeing our roads constructed, hospitals, schools that work, and so on and so forth.
Employment, yeah.
All right, earlier on we spoke about a phenomenon that's voided votes. Now I'd just like us to give some attention to this other issue. At the start of this program, we give projected figures, number of registered voters, those who collected cards. Yes, there are some who haven't collected cards, and that's what we see. It's always, you know, INEC is always about it. Your permanent voter cards, and quite a number of people still don't go back and collect those cards. And you find the rush to do so. When an election is coming in now and then you realize you can't participate, then you begin to rue not collecting those voter cards. What is the problem here?
Okay, it's just the same thing we've been talking about. What do I stand to gain from this process? What do I stand to gain from this system? We've gone to schools where there are no seats for the children. You've gone to schools where teachers in public schools, in 5 years, they have never been trained. No training for teachers.
All right.
Okay.
So
if you now come in and say, okay, come and vote, come and collect your whatever, I say, for what? They say, even if I vote or not, they not? They have their results even before the election.
We'll return to that, but as we promised, that would be bringing you details of what's going on at every point in time. We will now link up with Nnamdi Odipo, who is in Akure, and he is at the INEC office in Akure. And so we'll go over to Nnamdi Odipo. He's standing by. Yes, Nnamdi, tell us what's been on. We heard that early this morning, the sun that we have associated with Ondo State, Sunshine State, was enveloped by thick rain clouds. But it does seem that everything is okay now, and you don't look wet, which means you were not in the rain. Tell us what's happening now. Rain. Tell us what's rain. Tell us. Rain.
Well, it was quite heavy, but just as surprising as it came, it stopped just the same way. But I think at the time that the rains came, we were already building towards the end of the vote for the day, of course, which we do know was slated for 2:30. And the rain stopped, activities progressed, and just like you have said and you have informed our viewer, we did promise to bring them updates on the activities as they progressed from point to point. So we're building up to a point, another crucial phase of today's exercise, and that is when activities begin to gradually shift to the State Collation Center, which of course is the state headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. That is where we are, and if I would just move away a bit from the camera to give you a sense of what is behind me, there are a couple of other sister media stations already on ground as well. Well, this is where activities will eventually culminate. Of course, this is where the results will be collated at the state level. We do expect the results at this point would have moved from the wards to the registration area councils, then to the local government collation centers, and then from the local government collation centers, it would move eventually to the state collation center, and then proceedings would commence here and then culminate here with an eventual announcement of the winner of the election, Cyril.
Yes. To find out, lots of Nigerians are already seeing a trend because the INEC portal, we understand, is up and running, and people have been seeing some of the results right there too. So certainly what they see is what's happening real time, and that, would more than help to eliminate the incidents of fake news and fake figures being bandied around, right?
Cyril, and of course that is bound to happen. We know how our society is, and we know how quickly these items get on the social media. But of course, we do know, and INEC has said repeatedly, there is a reason for why the portal was opened for INEC. It is to throw up the issue of transparency, and we do know that results, with the help of the ZPAC, results are registered on the platform or on the portal, and then word by word, entered word by word, and these results are collated later on at the local government areas before coming here. I mean, it's expected that there will be speculations, that speculations will be rife, but of course we've also advised people, people in Akure, outside of Akure, across Ondo State, across Nigeria, to be patient and await INEC to come out with the eventual results, which will be the authentic results as released by INEC, Cyril.
Reports of people trying to disrupt the process, which were immediately put down. When you look at the people, you're out on the field. What's the feeling that you get, and how do you assess them and how they're looking at this whole process?
I seem to have lost connection with you, but if you can hear me, I think you wanted me to talk about the mood and atmosphere in town as people await the results. Right? Am I right, Cyril?
Tell us about that. Yes.
Maybe use sign language.
Well, elections is the context, and it's expected that people would be excited. Of course, it's also expected that there will be some level of tension as well. I mean, this is all part of any contestation anywhere, in any part of the world, I dare say. I mean, the same things or elements are playing out in Ondo State, as well as supporters of various parties anxiously wait for INEC to announce the results of this election. Well, at this point, we're at the coalition level, at the local government registration area councils. We expect that it would move here. I mean, we expect that people would also be patient, and that people would wait for INEC to come out and begin to carry out the state collation of results. The environment in Akure, where I have been in the last couple of hours, is still very, very calm. People are going about their businesses. The restriction of movement is just about to be eased, and so we have already begun to see people come out of their houses and take to the streets, as in walk, and we see people in clusters discussing the development. We expect that by 6, when the restriction is eventually lifted, restriction of movement, I mean, that people will begin to perhaps, maybe we'll see some stores and shops begin to open for businesses. It won't be the usual hustle and bustle, but we do expect that retailers and petty traders will take to the streets, so perhaps stroll up and display their wares, and that the streets will begin to come alive once again. It is quite peaceful, Cyril. We expect that it will continue this way. We do hope, actually, that it will continue this way and remain so as activities commence here at the State Collation Center and progress until we get the announcement from INEC on who emerges, you know, as the winner of this exercise, Cyril.
At that time, perhaps when the restriction on movement is lifted, we'll be checking back with you just to see how people are easing out. And by the way, you look up now, there are no rain clouds up there anymore, are there?
Say again, Cyril, I didn't get that clearly.
So the sky, no rain clouds this time around.
The clouds are bright. Sorry, I'm serious. It's not so. Well, I can't hear you clearly, Cyril. I think it's probably because of the scrambler that I have behind me there. There's a very large vehicle there, and it is a scrambler. I must be playing some tricks with our communication. But Cyril, we will keep you posted. We're on ground. We're already here. We're setting up shop somewhere in INEC where we're going to have a studio. We're also going to deploy some of our mobile equipment as well to the field to also keep abreast and keep our viewers abreast of developments in different parts of the state, Cyril.
Options to the audio. We'll do something about that later on. Perhaps we would perfect our sign language skills so that we can communicate even when communications have been somewhat disrupted. Like I see that you have shown skills in Yoruba. Perhaps the next step would be in sign language, and we can converse. So we'll check back with you later on. Thank you, Nnamdi. Right. Okay. So thank you so much, Nnamdi Odipo in Akure, Ondo State. Well, at this point in time, we would be saying thank you to one of our guests who is in the studio here, to give him some time to take care of other matters here. And I'm talking about Peter Oyene, who is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations and CEO, Advanced Management Academy, Abuja. Peter, it's been nice having you with us here. You want to say a few things to wrap up before we say goodbye?
Okay, I will just say that after the election, definitely somebody will win. What people want is put food on their table, remember the youths, set up a strategic thinkers, a group of thinkers. We are tired of people who come to the office just to pay us salary, and he pays himself as well. We are looking for innovative ideas from our leaders. and God will bless Nigeria.
All right. Peter, thank you so very much for being on set with us on Ondo Decides. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you again. But as for Nick Dazang, we're still here with you. We like it when the election management body is right on ground. So that
pleasure.
Right, so that we can keep finding out as things go ahead. Well, you just saw Nnamdi Odipo in Akure there, and he painted a fine picture about what's going on, and people are waiting, and gradually they are with the lifting of the restrictions, and so...
I think I'm not surprised because I've made several sorties to Akure in the past few weeks, and the state has a calm ambience, very inviting, very peaceful, and and this is reflected in the conduct of today's election, and I believe that a peaceful atmosphere will remain until the results are finally returned any moment from now. Because as we finish from the registration area centers, we will now move to the local government collation centers, and from there, in the course of the night, we begin to move to the state collation centers. So it's a process that is ongoing, and we are fast-tracking it as much as we can.
I like that. And in the night, so there are good things too that happen in the night.
Yes.
All right. Well, even as we speak, we have reports coming in that sorting and counting is going on, and we have a report from Ondo East local government area on the sorting and counting of votes, and this report is by Abiodun Oladipo.
At Bolondo St. Peter's School, Unit 2, Ward 3, here in Ondo East local government area of the state. Voting stopped at exactly 2:03 p.m. But officials had to wait till 2:30, which is the official time before sorting and counting. The process is being carried out in the presence of voters, party agents, election observers, and security agents. The process so far has been peaceful, with voters adhering to the COVID-19 safety protocols. And that's the situation here. It is back to you in the studio. It is back to you in the studio.
This one is Abiola Ario.
All right, we got that report. I think it was done earlier on by Abiodun Oladipo. Sorry about that. We have other reports, and we have one that's coming in. It's by Abiola Ario, and this one, yes, this other report we're standing by is by Abiola Ario.
Sorting and counting of votes has commenced in Ward 1, Unit 7, Araromi in Ilara, the federal local government area of the state. The process is being carried out in the presence of party agents, electorate, and security agents.
42. 43. 44. 45.
As at the time of filing this report, Ilara voting is peaceful.
All right, just apologies. We do from time to time experience a few challenges and glitches as we bring you those reports, but not to worry. We're standing by so many other reports, and like we saw a short while ago, Nnamdi is on ground, and we'll return to him at the appropriate time. And we still have one more. This is from Oshe local government area, and let's join Olubukola Duo, who has this report.
Votes in the Ondo State governorship election have begun in most polling units in Ose local government area of Ondo State. This is Ward 6, Unit 1, Ifon 2.
47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54.
The electoral process has generally been peaceful in this local government.
Thank you very much, Olubukola Aduo, that from us, a local government area. And we said goodbye to Peter Oyine, and we're saying welcome to Jide Uju, a public affairs analyst and a regular on forums such as this on NTA. Jide, thanks for being here with us.
My pleasure. Happy weekend, folks.
Right, okay. Yes, Nick Dazang has been here and we've taken him through so many aspects. But I'd like to start with you, since you're fresh coming in and you're looking fresh as well. I'd like to start with you. You certainly must have been observing things happening in Ondo State, from the open of voting to this period where counting collation is going on. Generally speaking, what are your thoughts on how things have progressed in Ondo State?
Well, yes, that's true. I've been monitoring different media channels and receiving feedback from colleagues who are on the field. And at least so far so good, things are calm generally. But for skirmishes and isolated incidences of violence in places like Idori, and the near fatal incident of the boat capsizing in the morning. But luckily, we learned no life was lost, and all the materials were also rescued by the Nigerian Navy, which because that will have been a big minus on whatever the outcome of election is, if we have lost those patriotic citizens who are helping to manage and conduct the elections. But thus far, I think the usual suspects are the ones that are rearing their ugly heads. Incidences of voter inducement in a number of places. And of course, according to Yaga Africa, the commencement of votes were delayed a bit. As at the 8:30, only 3% of the polling units opened on time. But within the hour, we had over 90% that opened. So again, that takes us back to whether INEC will not consider, postponing or commencing election till maybe about 9 years. If Edo, similar thing happened, many of the polling units opened within the hour. And it used to be 8 to 2 p.m. That's the normal time INEC conducts elections. But maybe because of COVID-19 and other considerations, they decided that this time around they are going to open by 8:30. But even that 8:30 has not been sacrosanct, because according to the report, there are still delay in the commencement of opening of polls. But the good news is that whether there is a late commencement, everyone who is on ground as at 2:30 p.m. will be allowed to vote. So there is no, even if there are 1,000 of them, they will all be processed, accredited, and allowed to vote. It's like a banking system. If a bank closes at 4 and you are there a minute to 4 p.m., you will be attended to. The only thing is that no other customer will be allowed in. And I think that's the standard operating procedure with INEC too, that no matter how late, and in some significant incident, in some time past, where there is significant late commencement of votes, INEC had to adjust even the time of closing of polls. But I've also watched reports that in many other polling units, by 2 p.m., nobody was coming again. But poll officials still held on till 2:30 before they started the process of sorting, counting, and announcement of result of the polling unit.
So, generally speaking, you'd say, well, it's been a fair exercise so far.
It is. And understanding the fact that the topography of Ondo is a bit different from Edo. You have more riverine in Ondo than you had in Edo. But again, if the commission says, because it was because of the wanting to avoid lateness in the commencement of polling units, the commencement of poll, that it's decided to move materials to rack center, or they have also created super rack. That's a registration area center where all the poll officials are, housed on the eve of the election, so that moving from that rack to polling units will be proximate. It will not be like taking off from local government distribution center. So, but I really can't put my hands on why this nagging problem still rearing its head, that at every major elections there is we can still call it late commencement of vote, because if you gave yourself, it's not in the Constitution, it's not in the Electoral Act that election must start at 8 and end by 2. It is the administrative procedure of INEC to determine the time that election will start and end. So if study over the years have shown that it is too early for them to start by 8 or by 8:30, they can take it to 9 or 9:30, which then give them sufficient time to be able to ensure commencement of vote as at the time.
Perhaps Nick would have a response to that. And why, for instance, he couldn't say, okay, let's start voting by 2 p.m.
No, that's out of the way. Okay. Because of the lack of infrastructure. If you commence voting late, then that means sorting, counting, collation of result will be by midnight.
And things happen at night.
Part of the challenge we had today was that it rained across the state.
Oh, okay. That's an element.
Some of the polling units were set up, and then they now had to halt the process because they had to take cover from the rains. So we need to factor that, in assessing the conduct of the election. Some of these things are not cast in stone. They are not like the laws that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai. But ANEC always revisits its guidelines. But also, before we do that, we look at so many factors. And because we established the super racks, which is a collection of a cluster of racks, and the idea is to have to congregate our staff in large quantity in a particular place that is proximate to the polling units. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were very careful not to create such super racks for the conduct of the Edo and Ondo governorship elections, because we are also mindful of the ensuring that our staff work in safety. And that was why we now use the 203 registration areas rather than the super racks, where you have a cluster of, say, 8 to 10 registration area, staff that would have been spread in those areas. They are put together in one place, and then they disperse in the small hours of morning. Maybe we'll come back to it after the pandemic, and then also see how it has worked or has not worked, and then compare it with what we have done during the pandemic. So we are always open to suggestions, and suggestions that will improve the process are always factored in our planning.
Okay.
So
that's as far as the election management body is concerned. But Jide, what about the voters, the electorate in Ondo State? what did you see?
Well, from the visuals I watched and news I monitored, they were quite enthusiastic and they came out in large number. However, at this point in time, it is too early to predict what the voter turnout will end up being. Because, you see, many times we make our judgments based on crowd of people you see. But a polling unit that have 2005, and you see 500 people clustering there, that's ratio 1/5. But when you see that large turnout of people, you say, oh, there is a huge turnout. But when the figures are crunched, you come to realize that there is still less than 30% voter turnout. Because you are going to be benchmarking the turnout against the number of registered voters. Now, already we have 1.8 million plus registered voters in Ondo, out of which 1.4 million people collected their PVC. Now, these 1.4 million people are the people we expect will be voting today. But you now have a scenario, for instance, the areas like Idori, where a number of polling units where talks were said to have run amok and were, shot into the air and were doing multiple transactions. In such area, potential voters will stay away because nobody wants to come the house way. As news filter to them that, talks are operating or there is violence going on somewhere. So what has actually happened with our electoral process is that while INEC has always been up to date and optimal in the preparation for elections, the political gladiators, in spite of signing peace accords, have always been undermining the process. You will have expected that today there won't even be a knockout, let alone gunshot, anywhere in Ondo, given the appeals, given the voter education, given the peace accord, but you still have isolated instances of people wanting to disrupt the process. I mean, a number of polling units in Akure South were also mentioned, then particularly Idori. I took judicial notice of that in Idori, where a number of polling units were affected. So when you look at voter turnout, you need to look at number of registered voters in that polling unit, in that ward, in that local government. Then aggregate figure will now tell us whether I watched the earlier edition where my seniors, Dr. Akomas and Professor Jibril, were speculating that there should be up to 40% voter turnout. That's quite optimistic. I would be glad to have 40%. That would be a significant improvement on 26% or 25.3% of Edo about 3 weeks ago. That would be significant. But what has baffled me, even when we may want to explain it away that it's COVID-19, is violent, you had incidents in one federal constituency election, INEC organized in 2017 or thereabout. 9% of voters determined who became a member of House of Reps from Lagos.
Before you joined us, we looked at this phenomenon and said, what is it? Is it that the electorate are yet to receive the amount of education or enlightenment or awareness that they need to know that they have a responsibility to determine who runs the affairs? Are there other variables that are responsible for this? We also talked about registered voters, the numbers who collect their voter cards, and the numbers that actually turn out to use those voter cards. What's the problem here?
Quite a number of factors are responsible when you talk of voter turnout, low or high. One, there are about 6 of them, but the usual suspect is violence. Of course, COVID-19, people may be scared, but there is also the issue of how impactful has previous election been on the people. People ask themselves, okay, I did vote 4 years ago. Has my life been any better or worse? And you make that decision because you don't want to go risk your life under this pandemic to queue in order to vote, and then your life is worsted. You don't have basic necessities of life. There are no jobs. The roads are bad. Worker salaries are not paid as at when due. I like the closing shot of Peter when he was leaving. We should not just make election an Olu ritual every 4 years. You just vote people into power. What impact is election making on the lives of the people? That is what can ginger, that's what can make people to dare rain and sunshine to participate in the process. That is one. Look, there is also the element of people collect PVCs. These PVCs were collected about 10 years ago. The commission started distributing in 2011 or thereabout. That's about 9 years ago. So many people have left the state. There is occupational mobility, there is geographical mobility. People have moved to other areas of the countries. There are people who have traveled abroad. You don't expect them to come to Nigeria because they want to exercise their franchise, or travel down from north to south because they want to exercise their franchise. The point is they will also make that decision. Who pays my bill? Who pays my way? If I'm going to leave Abuja to go and vote in Akure or to go and vote in Ondo, where when you leave the land, you go another 3 kilometers or 3 hours by boat to be able to cancel. The point is, you ask yourself, is it worth your effort? So there is that element. There are also those who have died that you have to factor in. People die every day.
All right.
So you cannot expect everybody to...
In the same vein, people have left, others would have come in there.
Yeah, but not many of them will have transferred their...
Okay, some have died and some would have attained the voting age as well.
But INEC didn't conduct continuous voter registration ahead of this election. And then the 400,000 plus that could have been collected because of pandemic, they also did not distribute. That will have also increased the number of people who will have collected. But it's hypothetical. Even for 1.4 million that have collected, we cannot say even up to 100,000 will have died. We cannot say up to 500,000 will have moved out of Ondo State. But at least if we have about 800,000 turnout, that would be heartwarming. That would set the record. And that's the kind of thing I think we should be looking forward to in our election.
Okay, we're still staying with you. We've talked about the electoral umpire. We've talked about the voters. What about the political parties?
That's our biggest headache. They are our number one headache. I've said this time and again, if only our political class, our political elites will behave themselves, we will not. You can see the way and manner in which they go about this politicking. One, they broke all COVID-19 protocols at their campaigns. In spite of the framework for guidelines released by INEC to say, look, take your campaigns online. That was an advisory. Take it online. You have the radio, TV, you have house-to-house campaign, you can do billboards and handbills, do political evangelism. But what did you see? They go physical. They were still mobilizing crowd. You see hundreds of thousands of people coming. Look at the mega rally they had. Where is the role of physical distancing and all of that? So number one, they have broken that COVID-19 program. Two, who sponsored the violence that we have recorded? According to CDD, Center for Democracy and Development, between August and now, there were 34 incidences of electoral violence that were recorded. 12 of them at campaigns. In fact, up till last Sunday, barely a week ago, there were still shootings on the streets of Akure. That's why some commentators have said this issue of peace accord, don't get them to sign peace accord on the eve of election. Let the peace accord come, even if it's going to be at the commencement of campaign. Maybe that will rein them in. Because INEC has done its level best, spending hundreds of millions of naira on voter education, civil society organizations. I can mention names: CDD, Yaga Africa, Nigerian Election Situation Group, many of the Transition Monitoring Group. All of these people have spent hundreds of millions of naira conducting voter education. Yet, what does it translate to? This not so deaf as those who will not hear. All they are concerned with is deployment of Machiavellian principle. The end justifies the mean. If you have to kill, maim, destroy, just get me to power. Let me just get that power. Now, you will even shoot your way to power. You are not going to use that power responsibly. That's the most disheartening for me. If in all of this, you manipulate or whatever you do to get victory, you now remember that, oh, there are people who paid the price for me to be on this seat. Then you work to benefit their lives. But no, what we have seen is bad governance. And I'm not saying there is bad governance in Ondo. I'm only saying in generic terms, people are generally dissatisfied with the performance of our political elites in this country. And when you look at the issue of vote buying, who are the people that perpetrates vote buying? Today, there have been significant record of incidents of voter inducement. In fact, there is one guy that was nearly linked in Owo, you know, because he was alleged to be inducing voters. And there are other reports of voter inducement going on. So who are the people engineering all of this? Electoral violence, vote trading, and all of these incidents of violence.
Yeah, Nick, you think huge resources that otherwise should have been deployed to improving the system have been spent on trying to ensure that both the political elite, the politicians, the contestants, and the electorate do what is expected of them?
Yes, in fact, apart from INEC, which invests a lot of time and resources trying to educate the electorate, particularly the political parties, their followers, and so on, the development partners, the civil society organizations spend monies running into billions. And these are monies that would have been deployed in other areas of need. And we said it earlier that the political class needs to come to terms with some of these. They need to reckon with them and to behave themselves properly, you know, because they visit all these things he has catalogued, and at the end of the day, the people are pauperized. The dividends of democracy are not given them. And at the end of the day, they now take advantage of this pauperization, you know, by inducing them. And the people are vulnerable because, you know, because of the level of pauperization in the country. So I think the way to go is for all stakeholders to be up and doing. And, you know, the flip side of signing the peace accords, perhaps weeks or months to the conduct of the election, is that they can consign it to the dustbin. So sometimes it's even better to do it at the twilight of the campaign and when the election is about to take place, so that people are reminded of their responsibilities.
These are security issues, Jide. It's extremely difficult, isn't it? If you signed an accord, if one party signed a peace accord, two parties, for instance, signed a peace accord, and decide to abide by the terms, it's extremely difficult if one party goes back on its word and engages in an activity and makes it look like it's the other one that has done it. It will be extremely difficult to tell who. For instance, we signed an accord that would all maintain the peace, and someone fires a gun somewhere. How do you prove that that is a supporter of party A or party B?
That's very true. And the irony of it is that these people are master of the game. You know, part of taking advantage, Machiavellian principle they deploy to election, is that they go to foment trouble in the stronghold of their opponent and blame the opponent for being the one. And you know, they are just special breed of people. I have never seen that kind of. The point is, you sign peace accord. The people who sign the peace accord are not necessarily the fomenters of this problem.
All right.
Usually, they have party chieftains, gatekeepers. These gatekeepers are not brought to the table to sign a peace accord. And because they want their party to win at all costs. So I can't imagine Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu giving marching order that people should be killed and maimed. And these are people he wants to govern. Neither can I can't contemplate a SCA, senior advocate of Nigeria, a lawyer of international repute, asking people to be shot and killed. Neither can I say any of the other 15 candidates. But the point is that they have party chieftains, they have party gatekeepers, they have warlords within the party who will do everything humanly possible to make sure. And sometimes it's about deliver your word. They give marching order to party loyalists within the system. Make sure you deliver your local government. Failure to do so, you will be removed either as this or that. So that also is heightened the tension. And this is why international community have now descended heavily on Nigeria. To say if you are fingered to have participated or precipitated or involved in vote rigging or violence, you will be placed on travel restriction, which is what the US government has done and UK government has threatened to do.
Fine. At this point in time, we'll be checking in with our crew in Akure, Ondo State. Right at this point, we'll move over to the INEC office in Akure, and there, standing by, is Ogochukwuka Ona, who will be taking us through happenings at the INEC headquarters in Akure. Ogochukwuka.
It is an established fact that it is a significant day in the lives of the people of the Sunshine State, Ondo. They have gone to their polling units to elect a governor for the next 4 years. Well, Nnamdi Odibo has earlier established contact from the INEC headquarters here in Ondo State, and now we have a makeshift studio here just to keep you abreast of what is happening at this time. My name is Ogochukwuka Ona, and you are welcome. All right, at this point, I want to introduce our guests here this evening. We have by my far right, Dr. Adedayo Afe, Department of History and International Studies, Adekunle Ajesin University, Akungba, Akoko. Sir, you're welcome.
Good evening, viewers.
Right, and very sitting close to me is Model Jeffrey Oluwabidoye, is a leadership and human development expert. So you're welcome.
It's nice to be here. Thank you so much, and good evening, Nigerians and every other person out there.
Right. Thank you so much. Let's begin with Dr. Adedayo. You've been, out there. How would you describe the process so far?
Well, the process, the fever, I'll call it fever, started about a month ago. But we thank God that the fever is about the pattern.
About a month ago?
No, I mean the heat of the election. So, but people, palpable fear all over the place. But we thank God that the election very, very peaceful today, even though beyond expectation. It was very, very peaceful. But in terms of food buying, very, very pronounced.
Okay, we'll come to that. Let's come to Mr. Jeffrey now. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, for me, most things people gloss over, I don't gloss over it. From the point of conceptualization and the date for this election, either consciously or consciously by INEC, it is 10/10/2020. It is a special day that is for special people, peculiar people in the Sunshine State. So, and the expectation was so high because it's supposed to be a turning point. Actually, it's a turning point for us. We are navigating after almost 4 straight years now of the current administration. And so it's an opportunity for our people to actually determine who lead us again for the next 4 years. So for me, I'm very happy, and I know that our people are happy across the state today.
Okay, what would you make of the voting process, the accreditation and voting simultaneously?
Well, in most part of Ondo State, early hours of today, there was a little bit of shower for like an hour or thereabouts. From the reports, from what we've seen so far, at least to about 80, 85, 90%. I must commend INEC, because what they did in Edo State in terms of ethical delivery, in terms of promptness, in terms of proactiveness and responsiveness to get to the polling units. They were there as early as 7:30 and 8. The election ought to have taken place almost immediately. While they were settling down, it was a general showering. For me, it's a blessing, it's a confirmation that everything on those states is going to be peaceful. So that was on for like an hour. And almost immediately after that, even despite that, the people still queue in the rain. Because there was no disruption of any kind, so our people were prepared because part of the sensitization that we've been doing in the last 1 or 2 weeks post-Edo election is that what they did in Edo, Ondo would do it better. And so because we are the sunshine state, without the sun, this nation cannot shine. So the sensitization was on, our people were ready, they were looking forward to today. So on the basis of that, everybody filed out. And then, so accreditation was taking place simultaneously, voting was ongoing. And then, so far so good, up till now, except 1 or 2 places, there were no incidences, there were no serious issues, and so many other things. And so it's a day that our people actually prepare for. And so the day came today, and then we have seen what, the voting pattern was across the state.
Okay, Dr. Afe, Edo State has become a reference point at this point in Nigeria's history, political history.
For now.
Okay, before now. Yes, for now, it has become a reference point. So if you are to make a comparison today, as at the voting pattern, what would be your assessment?
When you look at the logistics, in terms of the performance of INEC, very super, security agent, very, very excellent. Even though the voters, people conducted themselves beyond expectation. So I believe we've done well in the area of the planning and the execution of the election. But I want to give credit to the media. They did well. Most of the radio station, television station in Ondo State talking about peaceful election. It helps a lot. And even though religious organizations, civil society, they did a lot. The only thing is that this is an isolated election. If it's going to be general election, can we have this achievement? It is open for historical debate.
Okay, so in essence, you're saying the media has done very well.
They've done very well.
Both the conventional and social media.
Ondo happens to be the eye of the whole nation at this particular point in time. The number of security agents, about 40,000 security personnel to one election in Ondo State. So our fear is that in subsequent election, are we going to enjoy that chunk of security presence? Because we know the nation cannot provide it if it's going to be a general election.
So at this point in time, sorting, collation going on, and so many people have already started transmitting results online. So if you are to assess INEC on this particular process, yes, transmission of results online.
The process has allayed the fear of everybody. There is no malpractice there. From the polling unit, they then sent to the general server. So I believe that the outcome of the election to the public will be satisfactory. If there is going to be any reservation, I think there is going to be another leg either to challenge it in tribunal or whatever. But in terms of INEC, they've done well, better than the past.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so far so good. Like Yoruba will say, what that means is if your child behaves very well, you must commend him or her. 20 years has gone into our democracy, no doubt about that. So much has gone to it in terms of naira, dollar, euro, and pound sterling and all that, human effort. We actually know where we think we ought to be, but we are no more where we used to be. Like I said, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the right steps. And I think for once, that right step with the power of hindsight, with constructive assessment and appraisal of the activities of the critical stakeholder, particularly the umpire, which is the INEC. Because over time, election cannot be marred or cannot be said to be less credible if the critical stakeholders and the umpires are not biased. But looking at, I believe that the spirit of June 12th seems to, arose in Edo State. And so an average person now begin to see himself, particularly the critical stakeholder, and of preference to INEC officials and the security. We are all involved. And if peradventure we don't get it right by the way we've been doing it, and we want to continue as business as usual, and it's rock somehow, none of us is safe and all that. I was reading a statement credited to one of the finest personality in Africa, Nelson Mandela, this morning. And he said, Nigeria is the eye, we are the apple of Africa. We symbolize the entire black race all over the world. And that for African continent to get it right, Nigerian nation must get it right. And once the Nigerian nation get it right, and the people in Nigeria get it right, the spiral effect of that will trickle down to an average African, wherever they are, and the black nation all over the world and all that. So I think that considering the bashing that we are getting, because the international community is watching us, and like I said earlier on, so much has gone on, people believe by now, 20 years is no joke if our people are serious at all levels. 20 years is no joke if their senators are behaving well, as actually as distinguished as they often parade themselves. 20 years is no joke if MHR, honorable members, they often call, people who are supposed to behave with every sense of dignity and honor are actually behaving well. 20 years is no joke if governors we call His Excellencies are actually demonstrate spirit of excellence in content, in conduct, and in character. So for me, I think with what happened in Edo, the spillover here, and I know that the spirit will be going round, I believe that all critical stakeholders, particularly some of us who belongs to the media world, must continue to engage our people. The development partners have done well in their own assessments as well, because at the end of every 4 year election across the state, the development partners will address the press, address the world, and clinically and dispassionately analyze an issue raised over the years and all that. Behind the scene now we have seen some of those things now manifesting positively, and I believe that we are on a track to move. It's just that we are tasking. When an aeroplane is to move, first you have to task for a while, gathering momentum, gathering velocity, and so many other things. So I believe because people wake up daily, particularly in our nation, the younger generation have lost hope in the system by the rascality and the somersault that we have seen that has to do with our election over the years. But I think the time, the moment, and the hour we are waiting for has come, because I am a hyper-passionate person about this country. I believe that it can be done anywhere, particularly we reference democracy after America. So if it can be done well in America, we can do it better, because it is not cast in iron, it is not a rocket science, it is about people, it's about believing the institution, it's about all of us now as stakeholders, putting our best in it, and then believing it, behaving it, and then becoming it. So, and that's precisely what we have seen. Over the year, we have seen that, on a day like this, there will be, a bandit snatching, there will be gunshots, there will be thuggery, there will be so many questions, there will be compromise from the security agencies and also many other things. But for once, I think everybody now is behaving well, and it is my desire, because beyond this election, we will all go back to drawing board again to begin to clinically dimension it, and then see how we can, begin to promote that across all other states. And I believe that come 2023, with what we have seen, another election that will be taking place between now and that time, Nigeria, I think we are good to go.
All right, we are getting it right, and it's a gradual process. But let's look back at the campaigns pre-election day. Must it always be marred with violence, hate speech, and all that?
It's because the only job around now is politics. So it's expected. Because if you are going to be a good businessman now, you must have an affiliation with a political party. So it is the rise and fall of some people. If your party, if you didn't make it now, they believe that 4 years you'll be out of circulation. So people are desperate. Nearly all the major parties, the 3 major parties. So what I'm trying to say in effect is that we can still moderate that in subsequent election. Because politics, if you can't make it now, you make it in the next 4 years. So we should educate our people. Tell them, now, if the process of the election is credible, the way we've seen this morning, even though the electoral umpire, very, very dutiful, they got there before 8 o'clock. I left home 8 o'clock this morning. At least I was in about 10 polling booths. All of them, even though accreditation started before the 8:30 of the fair. So we can give it to them. So if you see that what you are spending money on, you are getting it. If you can't get it this time around, you get it next time. But I want to say that the way the security agents were neutral today, they should also be neutral during campaigns. They should be neutral. So if you are neutral during campaigns, anybody caught should be disciplined.
because we don't have another life. You don't need to kill people before you emerge as a senator or as a governor. So, but we can see transparency today, and I believe that the outcome of the election will just be very, very peaceful, because I can say election cannot be 100% okay, but to me, I believe that this one is more than even excellent. If you are saying that there will be other issues, there are courts there for you to iron it out. But what we can see, I think, in terms of arrival of material on time, it was very, very excellent. Even though the conduct of the security agent, no maltreatment of everybody, even though the soldiers, they were civil in their approach. The one I witnessed, they were very, very simple, civil. So I want to say that the way they behave today, let us extend it to all campaigns in future elections.
So let's Mr. Jeffrey mentioned a little bit about the youths being being pushed or being allowed themselves to be used in perpetrating violence and all that. Do you think politicians have this control over their supporters enough? And what should be done in this direction?
Fortunately, in First Republic, most of our leaders were youth. Zik was around 29 years old. He was already a mover of the nation. Aula was early 30s. All of them 30s. Akintola was not up to 40. So what I'm trying to say is that at that particular point in time, but the old ones, they still occupy space. The youth should know that nobody should use them as a sacrificial lamb. I used to tell people, Ajachin and Amobrewo, that people fought for in 83. Amobrewo died at the age of 81. Ajachin died at the age of 87. They live long. If you're a youth, you allow anybody to kill you, you are your own. So people should know that. In fact, it was 40 years after the crisis before Ajachin died. It was 29 years after the crisis before Amobrewo died. So as youth, we must tell them, let them know the history of political violence. Let them know those with the casualties. It's not the gladiators. It's the followers. We should let them know. People did that before this election in Ondo State. People, most of the radio stations, they did that during this election. So we should continue about that after the election. And again, winners take his out. Our leaders should be very, very careful about that. If you can't give anybody an appointment, definitely if there are ceremony, it can be invented. It can be invented. Let us, let inclusive government. Yeah, all inclusive, yes. So somebody that, I know a governor, to be precise, Governor Chokoto said, he won election with just about 250 something votes. Just 250 something votes. So you cannot treat that the other man as if he was nobody. So you must make sure so that this country will develop. If you continue like this, definitely we'll be getting it little by little. But our politics is too monetized. That is the greatest problem we have. It's too monetized. People believe that immediately after emerging as a senator, you've already crossed poverty line. It shouldn't be like that. In the First Republic, you will build your career in private sector or in public sector before you join politics. But today, you make it in politics before you own a company. A nation will not progress like that.
All right, sir, you would like to add to that as a leadership expert? Yes, would like to add to what the youth should do at this point in time.
Well, I must say this because I hang out with the youth a lot. Though a lot of them are losing faith in the system because of promises over and over that are yet to manifest. Some call them future leaders over 20 years, 25 years, and yet they are nowhere. It's the same people who claim that these are future leaders are still parading themselves in the corridor of power up to now. They will move from maybe House of Rep to Senate. From Senate, they will go to governor. From governor, they go back to Senate. They want to be minister and so many other things and all that.
But there is no restriction.
Yeah, I agree with you because the strategy they use over the years is a deliberate denial, deprivation, oppression, victimization. And so they're treating our youth as if, giving them crumbs, like if you are feeding fowls and all that. They deny them legitimate things that they ought to.
Are the youths ready to take over?
Well, quite a lot, because I hang out a lot with them. Our youths are very fantastic. Very, very fantastic. Because if you check the percentage of them that are probably involved in criminalities and what have you, and crime, I don't think they're up to 10% in actual fact. An average Nigerian youth is credible. An average Nigerian youth is hardworking, is industrious, is enterprising. An average Nigerian youth is creatively, excellent. They want to do something. Because, for instance, what an average Nigerian youth is bearing in terms of agony
of the psyche, in terms of, deliberate pauperization by the leadership. It can't happen in any other civilized society, not even in any of so many of African nations and so many other things. Yet, what will happen in America, and a young one will commit suicide, an average youth here is still kicking around, struggling to want to be relevant, so many other things. So what I'm saying in essence is, with the 20 years that we are seeing, that has gone by, so much has gone into it, our youth have been oppressed, they've been denied. But be that as it may, like one of our leaders will often say, and that's Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he said, leadership is never served a la carte. And that's the message and that's the gospel that I preach to them. That look, don't just sit down there and allow somebody to wait until 4 years and they put cap on your head, put little coins in your pocket and say, be jumping up and down for, electionary campaign and so many other things. You understand what I'm saying? Be involved, because what I've seen over the years is that after this election, our youth go back to bed. They don't see their leaders anymore. The leaders go around in tinted glasses. The youth come to their office, they tell the leader is busy, or guy is busy. Before you know it, the guy will spend 2 hours there. The senator has gone through the back door to wherever he's going. You get to their houses, there are dogs there, you can't see them. You understand what I'm saying? So, with all of this, but what I'm saying in essence is, 4 years is an opportunity, and that's what people like us are doing as human rights, as public affairs analysts, and consultants in dealing with the youth, to educate, because the statement credited to Pharaoh American philosophy by the name William James, he says, and I quote, the greatest discovery of our time, according to him, is that man can change his own life, change his immediate environment, change his world by mere changing of his attitude. So it is the attitude, the mindset, the mentality of the youth that the leadership over the years have attacked. They have attacked it to a point that now very many of our youth don't even know what they could call a right rather than a privilege. And so they deliberately deny them. So when the election comes, they give them 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and then they start jumping up and down.
That means that they are asserting themselves enough, owing to the fact that they constitute the largest number of registered voters. Yes, yeah. In Ondo State, for instance, we had 882,145.
About 1.4 million.
Yes, that is representing 48%.
That's right.
And all that, and between the age 18 to 35. Yeah. Do you think they are asserting themselves enough?
Well, one thing that I know, that a house that is divided against itself cannot stand. The youth are not organized, and it's part of the strategy of the leadership. They cause divide and rule among them, and because the common thing that is, to them, is the common variable among them is this poverty. For instance, a youth that is in school who have to struggle to pay his tuition, a youth that finished education as a graduate or HND or OND, who have to struggle to do Okada on the street and so many other things. It's often said that, well, when the desirable is not attainable, you make the attainable the desirable. So they deliberately cause disjointment, and they divide and rule among them, so that they don't have a cohesion, they don't have a center to come together and act in common voice and one reason another. So, and that's the area that we are coming in to bridge those gaps and say, look, don't lose faith, don't lose hope. Let us begin to talk together constructively, believe in yourself, have abiding faith in the system. Even if the system is failing, the fact that it's failing doesn't mean we cannot all gather together to begin to plant our seed of success in the ashes of failures of the leadership over the years. So this is the message, this is the gospel. I preach on radio, on television, and then I hang out with them. We do count a lot of programs, and I believe that awareness is rising gradually.
Okay. And talking about awareness now, there is an increase, and a 10% increase in the number of registered voters between 2016 and 2019, as reflected in the number here. So,
to me, I believe that our youth, they can think big, but they can start small. During the last presidential election, people that you can refer to as you that contested for the presidency, about 3 or 4 of them, I believe that those people can go to House of Representatives, very vocal, and their voice will be heard. So what I'm saying is that if you have youth between 30, 35, they can form themselves to House of Assembly and Rep. So if you can do that in the first 4 years, you find out that in the next 8 years, some of them will be getting to the position of a governor of a state. But if you believe that you are popular because you talk on television, you want to be president of Nigeria, it's beyond that. So you must organize yourself. When you organize yourself, you plan. And also, if you are going to choose, you must bury your ambition. All of you cannot go into the ring at the same time. Politics is strategy. So when you strategize, you can strategize in political affairs for about 10 years. So another set of people will also continue. You get there. But what I'm saying is that some of us today now, some of them are being intimidated. They are doing well in the corporate world. But those people, they don't want to go into politics because they are afraid. But if you made it in politics for 10 or 15 years, you can test the water. So what I'm saying is that if they want to capture power, I'm not saying they want to get it now. If you want to capture it, let them go to House of Representatives, House of Assembly at the local level. Before you realize it, in the next 5, 6, or 7 years, they will be trying to go to Senate and get.
Or they begin with the councillorship.
Yes, councillorship, the way they manipulate it now is not encouraging. Councillorship is more or less like, yes, it's more or less like nomination from the governors in nearly all the states. Even though if you are popular now, if the governor says no, you won't get there. It's not true election. In all states, you find out that the major political party in government, they are the one at the local government level. So I don't encourage them. The only one that I encourage them is the election being conducted by the state independent electoral commission. Whatever the way they behave funny. So if you go to House of Assembly and you display, when Nahuru was in the assembly, he was a young man too, below 35. He distinguished himself in Western State House of Assembly. Today, he's still a reference point. You can't write history of Nigeria without mentioning his name because of his voice.
So let's go to the women's participation in politics now. The women were not visible. What could be the factor?
So many factors. Number one, finance. Number two, apathy from home. Because people believe that women in politics, some people believe that some of them may be wayward, which I don't agree with. Because you find out that people of our age now, hardly can you release your wife to go and engage in politics. Because it may threaten their... So it's true conscientization. And their female counterparts, they don't vote for them. The female counterpart, they don't vote for women. Because if they want to vote for them, definitely they will get it very, very easy. You know, those House of Assembly now, out of 26, only one. Only one woman. And so,
out of 7.
The only one deputy, and then that party said they withdrew before the election. So we can say no female. So what we are trying to say is that it's still awareness. Let all these women's society, let them advocate, especially the elderly one among them that they are living now. Let them encourage the younger ones. Women, they are lawyers, good ones. Because if you are practicing law, you can go into politics. If you are on your own, you can go into politics. Even though a private doctor can practice politics. And in the First Republic, most of our politicians were professionals. That is what is lacking now. They were lawyers, farmers, teachers. Some of them were teachers of a grammar school, representing, Ajayi was a grammar school principal when he was a member of House of Representatives in 1959. So we should know all those things. Professionals should be encouraged, not women that they don't have credentials, not women that will be clapping. We are talking of people that can be given position. So if you have at least 10, 20 of them, definitely it will be increasing.
Okay, so briefly now, what are your expectations at the end of the day?
At the end of this election, the election is already peaceful. I'm expecting that the winner, somebody, I believe that the outcome will be credible. So anybody that is not pleased should go to court. Tribunal.
And from you, Mr. Jeffrey?
You mean my expectation?
Yes.
Well, like I said, apart from the fact that they said our vote buying by the reporters on the field and so many other things, but the bottom line, it was a peaceful election, and the very best with witness and all that. So I expect that the winner will emerge here tomorrow, and then those who have one or two issues, like my colleague said earlier on, have the tribunal to go to, and then I believe that Ondo State will move forward.
Thank you, Model Jeffrey Olu Abidoye, a leadership and human development expert, and also Dr. Adedayo Afe from the Department of History and International Relations Studies at Dekunle Ajesin University, Akungba, Akoko, Ondo State. All right, that's how it's been from our makeshift studio here, as we are still setting up the main studio at this point. And of course, we are right here waiting for those electoral officers on the field to begin to return to base, because attention will now be shifted from the polling units now to the INEC headquarters here in Akure. All right, Cyril is back to you for the rest of the program.
Right. Thank you very much, Gochkuka. And an interesting conversation you had with those two there, and we'll take up from where you left off. And Jide is here with us, and we've listened to them. They talked about so many things. The issue of violence. You started by regretting that even up till now, political gladiators still find a way to introduce some form of violence. And you heard one of the discussants there say loud and clear that the youths should be sensitized to, the dangers of violence. He, cited the cases of two elder statesmen who lived so long and wondered why the youth would want to cut short their life because of anyone.
Exactly. But Nick actually alluded to why people will stake their lives, because these same political gladiators are the ones that popularized their people.
Yes.
And because of high level of unemployment, high level of poverty, there are people to serve as cannon folders for politicians. They are the foot soldiers. How much do you need to give them? The irony of it is that these political gladiators, their own children will never participate. Their own words will never be seen among those who will foment trouble. They protect their own. But there's a adage in my part of the world that it's other person's child. You guys, if you like, come back. If you like, don't come back. All I've sent you on an errand. And how much do you send him? You send him on an errand with 2,000, with 5,000. He goes to kill and maim. If he gets caught, woe betide him if the Godfather is not there to bail him out. Many have gone for it. Many have been killed in the process. But the question they have refused to ask is, why are your own children not leading this pack? Why? Where are you? They know their children. They are in the Ivy Leagues in US, in UK, in Germany, in Europe. They will never give cudgels to their own children to go and attack opponents' base. But because of that culture of impoverization, pauperization by these political gladiators, it's easy for them to get the foot soldiers that they can deploy. And all said and done, the buck lies with our security agents. We deployed, or they claim to deploy 33,000 in Ondo. Civil defense deployed 7,000 plus. That's already over 40,000. Why do we still have incidences of these people having field day in some of the wards, some of the polling units? Yes, the excuse may be given that, okay, it's because they are not carrying arms and ammunition and all of that. But those who are harmed are within the corridors, even though they are not in polling unit. So why is it so difficult for us to nip this issue of incidents? And the police will say they've done all spot analysis, they've mapped out they know the bar sports and all of that. If you know the bar sport, why don't you mop up these undesirable elements ahead of elections? Why do you allow them to have a field day and give you a lot of headache in reining them in? So it leaves much for the professionalism of our security agencies when incidences like this happen. Because whether it's campaign, I've read the Electoral Act. Electoral Act actually gave a lot of responsibility to the Commissioner of Police in terms of making sure there is adequate security at campaign grounds. So yet you still have all of these skirmishes, and nobody, even where you get some people are allegedly caught, nobody follows through whether there are diligent prosecution and the punishment for those who may have masterminded or who are the ROS of some of these incidences. So the culture of impunity is what we need to break in order to put an end to this culture of violence that has always been rearing its ugly head in our electoral process.
Yes, let me align myself with him and say that yes, we have youths who are actually vulnerable because of the level of despair and poverty in the country. And that is why we try as much as possible to engage with these youths. For Edo and Ondo, we tried to engage their leaders at the level of executives of tertiary institutions who are in their own right influencers. We talk to them, we appeal to them to talk to their fellow students and fellow youths. Let them help us to enlighten them. Let them appreciate that, yes, we know you have challenges, you have vulnerabilities, but matters could be helped if you don't make yourself available to be used by these people. By the same token, we also talk to the women groups, because these people, used as cannon fodder have mothers. And whenever violence takes place, violence is usually perpetrated against fellow youths and women. They are always at the receiving end, and sometimes children. And so we also appeal to them to rein in their children. Talk to your children. Let them understand that violence is not the way to go. But I think that to address this issue and to check impunity, the way to go is for us to have a commission that deals with electoral offenses. As it is, we've said it severally and over a long stretch of time that INEC does not have the resources, to apprehend, investigate, and punish these perpetrators. But we have a separate commission whose remit it is to deal with this. And examples are made of those who perpetrate it. First of all, it will send a signal to the youths not to allow themselves to be used. And then it will also check those who use them, knowing that if I give someone money to go and perpetrate violence, he will be punished, and if I'm not careful, it can be traced to me. So we need. I'm a student of Dostoevsky, who taught crime and punishment. When there is crime, there must be punishment, and there should be punishment for deterrence and for restitution. So, but where you don't have punishment, then there will be impunity. And that is what we are seeing. People just believe that once an election is taking place, they must disrupt the process. And they will go to any length to do it and collect money, a pittance. I observed, leading up to the conduct of the election, both in Edo and Ondo, if you go to the hotels, you see so many young people loitering around, making themselves available to be used. But a few days to the election in Ondo, I noticed that they just disappeared. And I was wondering where they went to. And I was told in the hotel where I stayed that because they knew now that there were many policemen, they have fled. They have gone back to their cocoons. So to that extent, I think also the presence of the security agents helps. Okay. And you could see that where we had disruptions, they immediately intervened. And actually, why some of them there is because at the polling unit level, the policemen do not carry arms. So it is at the second cordon. We have 3 concentric rings. Yeah. We have the polling unit, then we have the second concentric ring where armed police or mobile policemen, stay at a remove at the level of the ward. And they can be summoned if there is violence or escalation of violence. And then the third concentric ring, which is the outer cordon, where members of the military, are stationed at the borders to check infiltrations and other untoward activities. So you discover that sometimes when they start the violence at the polling unit, they don't get far before the people at the second cordon are summoned in, are brought in to either apprehend them or to stop them in their tracks. Okay. So we need, for me, and in fact the commission, the way to go is let's have that commission on electoral offenses. Once we have it, and a few people are made example of, it will serve as a deterrence. But so long as you conduct an election, people disrupt it, and they go scot-free, they get emboldened and they feel that they can always go and go high on something and come and do it again.
It's been an ongoing debate on this matter, that INEC does not have the capacity to conduct elections and also to apprehend, those who disrupt the process and prosecute them. It's been on, and why do you think it's been on for so long and hasn't come to fruition?
Yeah, ironically, we want people who are primary beneficiaries of a crime to legislate against that crime. Because the people who are going to legislate are politicians themselves, and they know what many of them did to get to power. So they are never in a hurry unless they are pressured and pushed. They are not, unless they themselves become a victim of their complacency.
Or born again.
But, as many of them, as some of them have come out to say that they are born again, they are confessing their sin. We've had about 2 or 3 of them. I don't want to recount the names. The bottom line is that this Electoral Offences Commission that Nick is talking about has been on the table since 2008. That's 12 years ago. And we have had election in 2015. We have had election in 2011, 2015, 2019. Why is it not a priority to them to set up this Electoral Offences Commission? Because they are perpetrators and primary beneficiaries. So they know that once you legislate, giving legal teeth to this Electoral Offences Commission and tribunal, then there are days of fomenting troubles, there are days of engaging in vote buying, maybe numbered. And so they are not in a hurry, and civil society need to sustain the pressure that won us victory to have Freedom of Information Act after about 8-10 years, can also win us victory. Maybe this round of electoral reform we see to the best of, because right now, let me give you a scenario. Police will tell you maybe 50, 100 people were apprehended in Ondo. Fine. What happens next? The IPO may not be, the person who apprehends may be one of those 30-something thousand that were deployed. Right. So the guy leaves tomorrow back to his station. He hands over, make an entry and say this person. So when you need to prosecute, who pays him to come and serve as a witness in court? The presiding officer in whose presence that incident take place possibly will have graduated or pass out of NYC. Then INEC itself does not have power to effect arrest or to investigate. Only power given to INEC is that of prosecution. So INEC will wait and receive at any point in time that the police authorities are due, receive case files to now file. Out of the 16,500 staff strength of INEC, I'm not sure the commissioner have up to 250 lawyers. So in many instances it has to outsource. And some of the lawyers they got are senior advocates who do not come cheap. So these are part of the problem. Coupled with the fact that no matter the exhibit you have, if there are no witnesses, people that are ready to testify that this incident really happened, we caught this man with this money, this is the statement he made, he can even recount. And what has happened, Cyril, in many instances is that if the perpetrators happens to be a loyalist of the ruling party, they just ask the commissioner of, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, quietly file a nolle prosecute, that the state is no longer interested in prosecuting the case. And that's the end of case closed. So these are impunities that have been going on. And we do hope, eventually, if we do succeed, and I believe we can succeed, in getting Electoral Offences Commission. But that is just going to be like somebody who plucked a maize on his farm. He cannot eat it raw. He will still have to cook and still have to eat for him to be satisfied. So even if tomorrow or before the end of this year or the current tenure of the president, there is an Electoral Offences Commission, will it be inaugurated on time? Will there be proper funding Would the organization be properly resourced, well-resourced to perform its duty? So that becomes another round of challenge.
Let's have the commission first.
Let's have it
Yeah, we'll cross the bridge when we reach it, but let's have the commission first.
All right.
We've been on it for 12 years, since after the 2007 elections, canvassing for this commission. And even if it is a token gesture by just setting it up, I think it's something. So let's take the courage to have that commission set up, established, and let it start its work. And I believe that by the time it is set up, the same stakeholders that are clamoring for it and who believe that it will bring sanity to the process will continue to clamor for it to have content and teeth.
All right. One of the issues we touched on before you joined us was about the level of women's participation in politics. It was also discussed in Akure. And so I'm coming to you. What's the level? We said 17 contestants, one female, and like I heard that she stepped down or something, or was she part of it? I'm not sure. Right, but again, someone said in the state assembly there's just one
out of 26.
Oh, it's one.
That's the sad story. Untold stories of women participation in politics. Nigerian women has continually been sidelined and marginalized. In fact, if there is a priority legislation today, it is to give affirmative action to Nigerian women, to enable them effectively participate in politics and governance. I've been involved in the capacity building of many state houses of assembly in recent past. In Lagos, they have only 3 female out of 40 member state house of assembly. In Oyo is only 1. In Plateau is only 1. In Ondo is 1. Tokenism, in many northern states, you won't even see that one. So how do you now ensure effective governance? How do you advocate for effective protection of women's rights when there is only 1 woman in your state or there is none? Look at the high rise in the incidence of rape, domestic violence, and all of that. Who advocates? Nothing for us without us. It's not even only women, even persons with disability. How have we mainstreamed them? And I came up with a policy framework to ensure inclusive participation of women, persons with disability. But even up to today, look at the infrastructure for conduct of election. Are we giving due recognition and creating a level playing field for participation of persons with disability? The 2 vulnerable groups, even though many a time we say youths, the most vulnerable groups we have today in our electoral process are persons with disability and women. And unfortunately, when you go by population size, we are almost at par, men and women in terms of size. But when it comes to participation in politics, they are edged out. No matter what efforts, I've worked very closely with Nigeria Women Trust Fund and other many women rights group, WOTC, Rapper, Women Radio, and all of that. It's lamentation galore. This year makes it 25 years after Beijing Conference of 1995. The gender policy is dated. We learned that they are now revising the gender policy. Even before it became outdated, did we implement that gender policy? In terms of election, this last general election was the poorest in terms of women, in terms of political outcomes for Nigerian women. Not that many of them didn't desire. They came out in large numbers to participate, more so with the Not Too Young to Run Act in place, because the Not Too Young to Run is for both young men and women and persons with disability. But the point is, the gatekeepers in the political parties just refuse to give them tickets. And where many of them wrestle to get the ticket, they are not supported with the party structure to be able to win.
Yes, that's something I want to note. I want to note or observe. Yes. Even though I agree with substantially what you have said, which is that we need to have affirmative action. We need to consciously mainstream gender, bring our women on board. But I think also, I have a lot of sympathy for them, but I also believe they also need to work hard to earn some of the things we are canvassing for. There's something I noticed over time. You hardly see fellow women encouraging themselves. They need to begin to do that. And I recall that when the PDP had its primaries, in which former President Goodluck Jonathan emerged as the candidate, there was a female candidate.
Female aspirant.
Aspirant, rather. And the women prefer to queue and vote for a man. So they need also to begin. They need to begin to solidarize with themselves. There's something Venus Williams, the tennis player, does. Irrespective of your race or your color, if she plays with you, whether she defeats you or you defeat her, she embraces you, she encourages you. We need that kind of solidarity, even as we are canvassing for women to be brought into the process, mainstreamed, and affirmative action, done in their favor. They also need to be their own canvassers. And they also need to have the capacity to engage with the men, because it is men like us who sympathize with them that can make a case for them.
All right.
But if you don't engage with me, I wouldn't want to be seen to be always holding brief for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're about coasting to the touchline now. So we'll just go back and take a look at how it's been in Ondo, coming after Edo. Already from reports we're receiving, so many results, have gone up on the portal, and people are beginning to see what happened where, and are now waiting for that last part.
This is the time the tension is soaking, because the situation rooms of different candidates will be buzzing now. They are tracking, just like INEC is uploading on the NECVIN portal. They also have their own situation room where they are getting results from their party agents, and I think they are getting a sense of who is coasting home, and whether there will be the election will be concluded on first ballot or there will be inconclusive election. But more importantly, I appreciate the fact that INEC has always made one thing clear: INEC is not a candidate, and INEC is not interested in the outcome. INEC is more interested in the process, irrespective of who wins. It's not their cousin. It's not cousins of Professor Mahmoud Yabukubu or his son or his daughter or his girlfriend or his wife. The bottom line is that people made a free choice of who to govern them. And this voter education has gone out to say, be conscious, be clear in your head who you want to be your governor.
Right.
Because, yes, there are provisions for impeachment in case of gross misconduct. But how many impeachments have succeeded in Nigeria? How many? Since our electoral process began in 1923. How many successful impeachment have you had? So you are stuck with whoever you have elected.
All right.
But the point is, I wish the Ondo people the best of luck as the result comes out finally tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so very much. And it is on that note we will conclude this session. But not to worry. Stay with the NTA, and I will continue to update you on things as they unfold in Ondo State. It's only the Ondo Decide Studios that will be closing at this time, but updates will continue on all the NTA regular platforms. So stay with the NTA, and you'll get to know what's happening. The studios will reopen tomorrow, Sunday, at 9 o'clock in the morning. So keep a date with us. For now, we'd like to say a big thank you to Nick Dazang, Director voter education and publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission. You spent just about all day with us here, Nick. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
He's an able man.
All right. And to Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst, it's always a pleasure to have you join our conversations here. Thank you once again for being here.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right. And so that's the way it's been. And from me, Cyril Stober, so thank you too, and stay safe.